So, we welcome you all for today's discussion from Nectar of Devotion. And today, our syllabus or that we intend to discuss is chapter 14, 15, and 16. I am assuming that this is going to be a second last session for our studies of our Nectar of Devotion discussion. So, let's see how we go ahead about it. Let's offer prayers together and then we'll begin our discussion. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। जय श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौ भक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Welcome again. Today we are going to start our discussion from the 14th chapter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So first we'll offer or we'll recite the prayers or the shlokas, and we'll also recite one of the shlokas that we often do. You can recite along with me. Nana Shastra Vichanek Nipano Sadharma Samsapakam Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Namde Namattaliko Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. Let's go through the shloka recitations.
Recording in progress.
Kriti sadhya bhave sadhya bhava sa sadhana vidha nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakatyam hridi sadhyata smartavya satatam vishnu vismartavyo na jatu chit sarve vidhi nishedhasyo etayoreva kinkara tasmad gurum prapatyeta jigyasu shreya uttama shabde pare cha nishnatam brahmani upashamashrayam Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidhim Vina Aikanta Kir Harir Bhaktir Utpati Vakalpate. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. So let's start our discussion from the 14th chapter, titled as Devotional Qualification. Prior to that, let me do a very quick recap of what we discussed in the previous session. We had covered chapter number 12 and 13, where our discussion was centered around the 5 most potent forms of devotional service. Would anyone like to recall what are the 5 most potent forms of devotional service that Srila Rupa Goswami highlights without seeing your notes? Anyone? What are the 5 most potent forms of regulative principles? So, I'm just looking around and I'm taking a screenshot of my screen. So, to send the screenshot to the admin to mark absent for who all have their cameras off. Okay? And Nitai Gaur Haribol. Immediately everyone's camera turned on now. Okay, good. Fine. So, Maidhini, your hand went first. Please tell us what are the 5 most important forms.
Sadhu Sangha, Matravas, Harinam Sankirtan, Archana Vigra Seva.
Okay. Good.
Shravanam.
Okay. Shravanam. Sandeep, bro, you want to say something? Oh, you got muted. Unmute, please.
Yeah, Japa is also there.
So what are those 5 things? Dhamavas,
Japa.
Nama Sankirtan, Shastra Adhyan or Shravanam. What else? Dhamavas.
Deity worship.
Yes, deity worship. You can call it as A, B, C, D, E. Easy to remember. A for Sadhu Sangha, B for Shastra, C for Nama Sankirtan, D. Now, D is for Dhamvas, and E for engaging in Seva. हो गया आपका A, B, C, D, E? So, this is a 110% question for your examination. Huh? So, I have given you a simple acronym to remember what are the 5 most important forms of devotional service. All right. So this is what we discussed last time, and also we couldn't do this exercise, but I had given it to you as a homework, where all of you have to study all the 64 items and find out which areas you're weak, and you had to come up with a solution to strengthen those areas of regulatory principles. So I hope you might have done that exercise. If not, if you do it, then the second point will be covered. Okay. Now let's move forward to chapter number 14, titled as Devotional Qualification. So let me just give you a recap what's going on here and what is the purpose of this chapter. This chapter titled as Devotional Qualification, if you go to your index of Nectar Devotion, and in that if you see the chapter number 5, the purity of devotional service, in that chapter number 5, anyone know? Of course, this is going to be a little difficult question. What was the subject matter of the 5th chapter, the purity of devotional service? You can take a look at the index, and if anyone remembers, Nirvi's parents. Okay, go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes.
I think, that was about how independent devotional service is, and irrespective of where we have gone and everything, still we can do that.
Yeah, it's a little other way around. Not that how independent devotional service is. Point is how bhakti is independent of. There is a different meaning.
Independent nature of devotional service.
No. Not independent nature of devotional service. Bhakti is independent of your janma. It doesn't depend on what, is independent of this material parameters. That was a discussion there. Similarly, when you come back here in this chapter 14, you'll see a discussion on the same lines, where now when bhakti has been already established, we have already discussed all the rules and regulations for Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, 64 items of devotional service have been explained. However, there are certain items which have not been added or considered by Srila Rupa Goswami. Those items are presented in chapter number 14 by explaining that how these items are not essential for bhakti. And those items are Jnana and Vairagya. Bhakti does not depend on Jnana and Vairagya. For example, we have different regulatory principles under the 64 points that we discussed. If Vairagya was an essential thing, then it would have been also mentioned to cultivate detachment. And if Jnana is essential, then it would have been mentioned that Brahman realization or a perfect realization that you're not the body but soul is essential to perform pure devotion service. Are you getting the point? It's very important to understand. In all of the 64 points, regulatory principles, there is no point which says that it is essential or it is required or we should cultivate this knowledge that I'm not the body but spirit soul to be able to practice pure devotion service. Simultaneously, it is not mentioned that we should cultivate detachment to practice pure devotional service. Why? Because it is other way around. When you take to bhakti, you cultivate jnana and you cultivate virakti. Any reference that comes to your mind which proves by just doing bhakti, everything else happens. Particularly jnana and vairagya, we cultivate automatically by practicing bhakti. First canto Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, Madam Manisha, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Prabhuji, Dhruv Maharaj story.
Dhruv Maharaj story. What happened in Dhruv Maharaj story? He renounced. He went to the forest to perform tapasya, right?
Yes, but he was doing tapasya to attain kingdom, which will never perish. But when Lord Vishnu gave him darshan, so his desire was went away, and he asked for liberation for.
Correct. That is when he attained a certain stage. We are talking about practicing pure devotional service. Jnana and Vairagya is not needed. You don't have to cultivate Jnana and Vairagya separately to practice pure devotional service. And the example comes, or the Shastric reference comes in the first canto. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Ahitukam. What is that verse says? Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. One who engages in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality Godhead Vasudeva, what happened? Janayati Asu Vairagyam. Very quickly he develops Vairagya. Jnanam Chayad Ahitukam. Ahitukam is the causeless mercy and also attains transcendental knowledge by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the same thing Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita also. What is that? When it comes to Jnana and Vairagya. Bhagavad-Gita 10th chapter. Now I don't want to tell you the next digit. Now, what is the verse in 10th chapter? Okay, we have not discussed Bhagavad-Gita, so let me make a point here. Teshamevanukampatam aham ajnanajam tamaha nashyami bhavasto jnana deepena bhaskara. If I'm correct, the last few lines are close to it, which means by my causeless mercy, I dispel the ignorance. It is by the causeless mercy of the Lord. And who gets the causeless mercy of the Lord? Tesham ivanukampartham. Who gets his mercy of the Lord by which the ignorance is dispelled? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. One who constantly, consistently engages in my devotional service, renders with the right attitude, devotional attitude to that person, I award the required intelligence by which such person can come to me. So, have I confused you, or is it making sense? If you feel confused, raise your hands. If you think you're getting it something, then what do? I don't know what you do then. Okay, then don't raise your hand. Okay. All right. So, but I am at this point of time making a slightly contradictory point. When I'm saying that you don't need jnana and vairagya to practice pure devotional service, if I say that statement, then it is incorrect. Because we need to follow regulative principles. Isn't that the part of vairagya? For example, in 6th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, when Arjuna says, my dear Lord, Chanchalami Mana Krishna Pramati Balavadram Tasyam Nigraham Anne Vayu Rivasa Dushkramam. And then Krishna says, yes, Arjuna, I totally agree. But you can control your mind. How can you control your mind? Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagya cha grihate. Krishna says you can control your mind by suitable practice and by suitable practice of detachment. Vairagya. So it's not that we don't have to cultivate vairagya, we don't have to practice or cultivate knowledge or practice vairagya. We do have to do it. But what is the difference is, when it is talked about jnana, that bhakti does not depend on jnana, that jnana refers to the jnana that I am not the body but soul. But you cannot practice bhakti unless you have bhakti jnana. What is bhakti jnana? I am a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Are you getting this point? If our bhakti was not dependent on jnana, then why would Prabhupada say have bhakti Shastri, bhakti Vaibhav, bhakti Siddhanta, etc. courses? Is that clear? So what bhakti jnana, our bhakti depends on? Bhakti depends on bhakti jnana. which we get in the scriptures like Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. But on what Gyan it does not depend, the monistic knowledge, where it is said that you are not the body but spiritual, etc., etc. Vairagya, yes, we do need to practice Vairagya, but we have to be careful of becoming too excessive about it. I'm just giving you a little synopsis of the chapter. We'll look into the details. For example, Srila Prabhupada was somewhere in South India, I believe Coimbatore or somewhere, which is a coastal area. So not Coimbatore, maybe Vishakhapatnam, which was a coastal area. And Prabhupada came out from the morning, Prabhupada came out for his regular morning walk in the temple where he was staying. I believe it was a Gaudiya Math. And then one of the Prabhupada disciples, he wanted to catch up with Prabhupada for his morning walk. When he came out of the temple, he didn't find his slippers. So he thought, I'll run without the slippers. And he was running. And on the way to go to the beach, there were many pebbles on the road. And to walk on it was really hurting to this devotee. And he was saying, ouch, ouch, ouch. He was like, screaming, and he was coming behind Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada looked behind and said, what happened? And the disciple said, Prabhupada, no, sorry. I forgot my slipper in hurry. So therefore it's hurting me. Prabhupada said, so why you had to come? So the disciple said, Prabhupada, for your sake, I can even cut off my neck. What is the problem with this little pain in my feet? The Prabhupada looked at another disciple and said, bring the knife. I'll cut his neck right now. And then Prabhupada said, when you already have enough austerities in this material world, why you have to unnecessarily perform tapasya? And if you see, the emphasis on vairagya or renunciation which is given to us is, just follow the 4 regular principles properly. That itself is haribol, not easy. Very challenging with the days and times that we're dealing with. So that vairagya, that virakti we need to cultivate. First thing. Now somebody who may go to the little extreme ends of vairagya, there are practice of renunciation described also in scriptures. Why it is not considered favorable? The nature of vairagya, when you perform most extremes of principles of renunciation, then there are chances of our heart becoming hard. Our heart becoming hard. Hard means it becomes very egoistic and selfish, filled with the pride that I am better with other devotee. For example, you're doing a Nirjala Ekadashi, you're part of a community, and on the day of Ekadashi, you walk inside the temple after the class into the kitchen area or into the prasadam area. You see everyone, including your temple president, is sitting with a whole little Giri Govardhan on his plate and eating a Ekadasi prasadam. How many of you think my mind will say, all are sense gratifiers? These fellows should learn something from me. I am just 2 years into the movement, and most of these fellows are 10 years into the movement. They're eating so much prasadam. See how austere I am. I am not even eating, I'm not even drinking. These people should learn something from me. How many of you think mind will say like this? I'm not saying you're gonna say, but your mind will give a thought like this. This comes but naturally. So therefore it is said, it unnecessarily creates a pride, and it is said before the fall down, the pride comes before the fall down. So these are the reasons for which, only prescribed renunciation should be practiced, not other way around. Just like one disciple of Bhakti Siddhanta says, Thakur, whose wife passed away, and he came to Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur and said, Swamiji, Guru Maharaj, I'm ready to take sannyas. Bhakti Siddhanta says, he asked, who told you you're ready to take sannyas? What makes you think you're ready to take sannyas? And the disciple said, Maharaj, what do I tell you? I don't want to sing my glories, but because you asked, so let me tell you one incident about my degree of renunciation. When my wife passed away, I did not shed even a single tear. I am so renounced. Guru Maharaj, you asked me, so I am extolling my glories. And Guru Maharaj said, I am so proud of you, go and get married again. You're not qualified for renunciation. Because bhakti is not about renunciation. Bhakti is about cultivating sentiments of attachment and attraction for Krishna. That can only happen in the heart of that person whose heart by the practice of bhakti becomes soft. And by the practice of bhakti, the heart would naturally become soft. We'll see that discussion in our, either today or in the next week's discussion. So knowledge which is needed, knowledge is bhakti gyan, vairagya. Vairagya is that which is prescribed for our growth. Second aspect of vairagya which is discussed in this chapter, I'm giving you a whole synopsis, okay? We can read it out after this. A second aspect of this vairagya which is given is, there is a difference of how our devotee looks at the matter and let's say a Mayavadi looks at a matter. So when a Mayavadi looks at a matter, he says Jagan Mithya, everything is false. We got nothing to do with matter. When a non-devotee looks at the matter, he looks at the matter with an idea of exploiting the matter. But when a devotee looks at the matter, how does devotee looks at the matter? To enjoy or to say I got nothing to do with it? Or how does he looks at it? Any idea, any clues? Yes, Nitai Prantu.
As a part and parcel of the Krishna which can be engaged in the service of the Lord.
Correct. I would just rephrase you, not as part and parcel of Krishna, as an energy of Krishna. Because part and parcel are set for living sparks, not for dead matter. I'm just changing your language, that's it. Otherwise, answer was correct. So he sees that as energy of Krishna, and which is meant to be utilized in Krishna service. Prabhupada gives a beautiful example. Imagine you're walking onto the street and you see someone's wallet. There are potential responses to it. One potential response is immediately grab the wallet, keep it into your bag, and walk away as if you know nothing about it. You never saw any wallet on the street. You don't know there was a wallet lying. So that is one kind of a response. This is kind of stealing, you can call it. Second kind of a response, when you walk on the street and you see a wallet full of cash, you become frightened. Oh no. This will become a cause of my attachment to this world. Naiti, and you run away. And third response is, on the street you find that wallet, you pick up a wallet and you look to whom it belongs to. You see first that there is some ID card or something. You find the ID card, you find the phone number, you call up the owner and say, Hare Krishna, I have found your wallet. Please come and collect it. The first response, when a person picked up the wallet, kept in the bag and ran away, saying as if nothing happened, that represents karmi. Enjoy for myself. Second response is of Mayavadi. Naiti, I got nothing to do with, I'm detached. And the third response, taking that wallet back to the owner. Among all three, which seems to be most appropriate and logical, even from a common sense point? The third attempt, isn't it? Neither you're enjoying it nor you're leaving behind, but you find the owner and give it back to the owner. That is what bhaktas do. When they see anything in this world, they see everything in relation to the Lord, and they try to utilize in the service of the Lord, and this vairagya is called as yukta vairagya. The word yukta means yukti. And I believe in this forum only we have one mother by the name of Yukta, right? Maybe in the Hindi batch. Okay, anyways. So Yukta or Yukti. Yukti means to engage. So Srila Prabhupada gives an example that, there is an airplane, there is a dictaphone. We are using everything in the service of the Lord. That is the right kind of renunciation. And then there is another renunciation by the name of Falgu Vairagya. In Bihar, in Gaya, there is a river by the name of Falgu Nadi. Anyone knows about this Falgu Nadi? It's very interesting. When you go near to that river, you don't see any water body. It looks like a dried bed. But when you put your feet there, suddenly the water comes out. So like from the distance, it looks like a dried up bed, but when you put your feet there and suddenly the water comes up like that. That river is known by the name of Falgu. Falgu means deception, cheating. So what is Falgu Vairagya? Prabhupada calls all these Mayavadis, all these sannyasis who do not want to accept and utilize things in the service of the Lord, but they disown it by saying that this is Maya. That renunciation is Falgu renunciation. And Prabhupada explains. Prabhupada says, why this is Falgu renunciation? Why these people cannot renounce? A question of renunciation only comes when you have something. When you don't own only, how can you renounce? First thing. Second thing, these people, although they say we renounce, after a while, after practicing their sadhana for a few years or decades, then they again come back to the material life and they open philanthropic, they do philanthropy services like Save the Soil project, etc., etc. I mean, that's a good project, no doubt about it. But, open hospitals, schools, college and whatnot. And they come back among the common masses and then they try to do charitable activities among them. Well, if you were so renounced, why you had to come back and do something for the world again? You should not be, but they don't find satisfaction and they come back. So that is a high level discussion on the subject matter of jnana and vairagya. Let's see what we have in presentation and we'll take a look from there. Nitai Pranpru, we can have somebody who read along with me. Either you or maybe anyone from the forum want to read. They can read the points that I'm going to show on the slides now. Okay. Devotional qualification. Go ahead, please. Yeah, you can read it. Fine. So, you and mother both are sitting now, so you can read the heading or vice versa. There are 2 points now, we can go with that.
Attachment to Jnana Vairagya.
Why are the process of jnana and vairagya unfavorable to devotional service?
The answer. Please go ahead.
Jnana and Vairagya may be detrimental to the cultivation of devotion. Sri Rupa Goswami warns that Jnanis and Vairagya can make the heart hard. A materially attached person has many emotions that impel him towards sense gratification. Vairagya involves making the heart callous and indifferent to those emotions so that one will not be moved by them.
But bhakti, go ahead.
Bhakti, though,
We can alternate, Nitai Pranpru. We can alternate. Mhm.
Bhakti, though, means to please the Lord by one's love for Him. To express such love requires a soft heart, easily moved by the Lord's name, form, qualities, and activities. Jnana and Vairagya are not favorable to devotional service because they result in a hard, stoic heart.
Yeah, from waves of devotion. So I have discussed this point. Which jnana and vairagya is not favorable. Is that clear? When they say jnana and vairagya is not favorable, the jnana, which is monistic knowledge, and vairagya, where we are going to the extremes of renunciation, but it actually does not bring any satisfaction to the heart. Our progress in bhakti depends on kripa, on mercy. So what we need to do in our to be progressive in spiritual life, to continue consistently rendering devotional service and wait for the mercy of the Lord to descend. And that's how we develop this jnana and vairagya both. Next.
Are the qualities of Jnana and Vairagya favorable to devotional service? Why and why not?
Answer.
The qualities of knowledge, jnana, and detachment, vairagya, are necessary for devotional advancement. Without knowledge and detachment, one will be attached to the material body and tend to act for the body, not for Krishna's pleasure.
So we discussed this point. We need jnana and vairagya. Jnana, I am the part and parcel of the Lord. Vairagya, while following 4 regulative principles, also there is certain detachment. That is needed. Okay. Next question.
How can one develop Jnana and Vairagya that is favorable to devotional service?
I already gave the synopsis. Let's read the answer now.
Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitah Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world.
So, yes, we need to practice detachment of vairagya. And how do we practice practically detachment of vairagya? For example, we want to eat something palatable dish. Prabhupada gives an example. You will see that in page number 114, paragraph number 3. Prabhupada says you want to eat something nice. So what do? You don't just put it in your mouth. You prepare a nice item of it and you offer to Krishna and then wait for Krishna to honor it. And after that, you accept it as prasadam. This also requires vairagya. This is called as favorable vairagya. And then in the next paragraph, Prabhupada talks about, but however, Mayavadis, they artificially give up things and they fall down. They cannot maintain their standard. So what should we do? What is the conclusive point for devotees on the subject of vairagya? So in the next paragraph it is said, for devotees, we do practice vairagya, and the practice of vairagya that we do is called as yukta vairagya. So what is yukta vairagya? Let's take a look. Please read out. Okay, this is a, yeah, it's a shloka. I'll recite it. All of you can recite behind, then please read the translation. Anasaktasya vishayan yatharam upayunjita nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Anaasaktasya, asakti, attachment. Anaasaktasya means without attachment. Vishayan, very interesting, huh? Sense objects are called as vishayan. You know, vish, poison. The sense objects are said to be which gives poison. Vishayan. Yatha haram upayunjita. Upayunjita, to engage. Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe. When somebody engages sense objects in this way, Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya uchyate. He does not get bound, and such a renunciation is called as yukta vairagya. Please read out.
When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accept anything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness.
Correct. And I already gave you the example describing this in terms of, the finding a wallet on the street. So when karmi sees this material world, they want to enjoy and exploit it. When Mayavadi sees that, they think they have already got frustrated, so they got nothing to do this world. Whereas the devotees, frustrated or not frustrated, they see everything, how to be connected in Krishna consciousness, how to be engaged like that. And then there is something called as Falgu Vairagya. Prapanchiktaya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mamukshubhi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. Please read the translation.
On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation.
For example, Prabhupada gives example, just like Mayavadis, they may take Mahaprasadam of Lord to be material. And they'll say, oh, no, will not take it, this is not this, that, and all that, and they commit offenses to it. So one offense is that they have the Mahaprasadam, they have the opportunity to honor it, but they don't take the opportunity to accept the Mahaprasadam. But more bigger that offense is when someone gives you and you reject and throw away. So in our situation, devotees, one is to see Mahaprasadam and second to reject the Mahaprasadam. So Mayavadis don't only see, they even reject. So that is considered to be offense. Similarly, when they do not utilize things in the service of the Lord, that is also considered as an aparadha. So therefore, how devotees are taught? Devotees are taught to see everything in relation to the Lord and utilize it in the service of the Lord. But now here comes the question. Can you think of any situation where this Yukta Vairagya principle can be misapplied? Where a person says, well, it has been taught to us everything is to be seen in relation to Krishna, everything to be utilized in service of the Krishna, let me do anything and everything and dovetail it to Krishna service. Do you think of any scenario where this principle of Yukta Vairagya can be misapplied? Or to apply the principle Yukta Vairagya, do you think there is some prerequisites for it?
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Who is speaking?
Hare Krishna. This is Maya processing.
Yes, Mother.
Prabhu, generally we say that everything has to be used in the service of Krishna. But recently when I been to Vrindavan, it was Ekadasi, and as usual, fasting is more of feasting. I could see that everybody's plate was like, as you mentioned, it was like Giri Govardhan. So I feel, in the name of saying that everything has to be used in the service of Krishna, we are sometimes overindulging in our senses also. Though it is prasad, no doubt, but too much of anything. Nowadays we see a lot of people getting into health issues, probably because of this one point we are missing. I may be wrong, but that's my feeling.
Correct. Thank you. Any other comments or inputs? Only thing I would say when it comes to prasadam, please measure the size of Giri Govardhan on our plate. Let others have whatever size they have, because that could become a little tricky. Others could be rendering service like, Herculean services. They may need extra. We don't know what's others' requirement. So prasadam thing is a little tricky. And you might see with prasadam when it comes, not now, but in the beginning days, if you remember, oftentimes when people sit down to take prasadam, their eyes are always on the other plate. Usko kitna mila? How many gulab jamuns he or she got? So the prasadam issue is very tricky. So if you don't talk much is better. Okay, any other thing? I'll let me reiterate my question once again. That was a good input. Thank you. To practice yukta vairagya, do you think there has to be some prerequisites or conditions, or because we have just talked about yukta vairagya, engage everything in the service of the Lord, Hari Bol, now I can do whatever I want, I can say anything and everything in relation to Krishna, or there has to be some conditions for it also? Mother Priya, go ahead.
So I think, Prabhu, first of all, because we have our gurus with us, so we need to take their instruction. And in Isho Upanishad also we read that we should only accept what is there in our focus. So on the name of Yukta Vairagya, we should not be overindulging in everything and doing everything under the instructions of Guru or Shastri.
Okay, good, very good. While you were speaking, a story was coming to my mind, so I was smiling thinking of that. I'll just tell you that. So, how many of you have faced this challenge where many people are afraid to come to ISKCON because they feel if we come to ISKCON, everything will be taken away from us in due course of time. All my material happiness, all my desires for material success, all my desires for big cars and big international travels, everything will be taken away from us. And I will be also having a shaven head like them in 6 months from now, wearing a simple dhoti kurta and wandering around. So right on the beginning, they get afraid. How many of you have seen people getting frightened? They're scared of ISKCON's very sincere practice. They find it threatening. So in Mahabharata, there is an interesting story where Yudhishthira Maharaj once speaks to Lord Shri Krishna. Did I tell you this story before or no? Okay. So Yudhishthira Maharaj tells Lord Shri Krishna, my dear Lord, I have a prayer. Lord said, yes, Yudhishthira, what's your prayer? What do you want? He said, my dear Lord, please bless me that I can get married to many beautiful queens. And Krishna was surprised. He said, what? Why do you want to get married to so many queens? So then Yudhishthira Maharaj said a very interesting point. He said, my dear Lord, I see people are so scared of bhakti. They think when you take to bhakti, everything is taken away from them. By getting married to many ladies, I want to show you can still enjoy and be practicing bhakti. So, point I want to make here, of course, Krishna did not approve of it. Krishna said, no, Yudhishthira, you don't have to do it. You be what you are. You follow your principles. You don't have to get into all these things. So the point I wanted to make here in this regard is sometimes maybe for the sake of preaching, maybe sake for taking care of other devotees, we might cross our limit. For example, brahmacharis, they have their boundaries defined. One thing, there are few areas which are very dangerous for, let's say, brahmachari ashram. One of the areas is wealth, money. We should not be independently dealing with money matters or engaging money and any project like that. It should always be under the supervision and direction of senior authorities whenever the funds come into picture. So in other words, to apply this Yukta Vairagya principle, to follow it in relation to sense objects, first of all, we have to ask ourselves, what is my adhikar? Let's imagine somebody wants to do internet preaching, but he has internet as his weak point. If he goes onto internet, he gets distracted with so many social media news and whatnot. For 15 minutes service, he spends 2 hours wandering and looking around things on internet. Yes or no? But he wants to do internet preaching. So now, does it look like that's his adhikar to do that service? Is he qualified to engage internet opportunities or create internet opportunities for preaching? Now, what is the point of doing service when the person himself cannot sustain in devotional life? So one point for Yukta Vairagya therefore has to be considered, as Mother said very nicely, it should also be in consultation with our superiors. What I should do or what I should not do. That's an important thing. Second thing is what? Wealth and followers. Prabhupada talks about it in page number 116. Very interesting thing Prabhupada says about this. 116 page number. Can we read from the book only? Somebody, please go ahead. Do not fall trap to followers. Page,
in our book, in chapter 13,
no,
the
we
page
are,
number 1, chapter 13.
okay, so I am on my book of Nectar Devotion. I don't know which Nectar Devotion you have, but in this book, it is chapter 14, page number 116. The spiritual master must never be carried away. Please go down, go down. Keep going down. Yeah, the next paragraph. This is the one. Please read out. Go ahead. Right up on the screen.
The spiritual master must never be carried away by accumulation of wealth or a large number of followers. A bona fide spiritual master will never become like that. But sometimes, if a spiritual master is not properly authorized and only on his own initiative becomes a spiritual master, he may be carried away by an accumulation of wealth and large numbers of attachments.
On his own. The same point. Oh, I'm initiating so many because I want to engage them in service. So I'm utilizing this money. I need money to engage in service. When it becomes on your own, then there are chances of distraction. That's the point we mentioned. Please continue.
This is not a very high grade devotional service. Person is carried away by such achievement, then his devotional service becomes lightened. One should therefore strictly adhere to the principles of discipline.
Now in the next, no, this is okay, mother. In the next paragraph, Prabhupada mentions, if you want, you can mark it as a note for yourself. As I have discussed and told before, that you can read a paragraph and give heading. Next paragraph, I see in my book I have given a heading, Krishna consciousness is complete. So Prabhupada says in the next paragraph, he talks about, for example, qualities like non-violence. Now cow is a non-violence. Now, does it become because cow is a non-violent or herbivorous animals are non-violent, so they will automatically become a devotee? No. However, devotees are non-violent. Why? Now, before coming to Krishna consciousness, could be some people would be eating, could have been eating non-veg, but because they took to bhakti, they automatically become non-violent. So it is bhakti that gives you these qualities. Your bhakti does not depend on these qualities. Not that if somebody is vegetarian would necessarily practice bhakti. But once who takes to bhakti, he automatically develops all the good qualities. That's a point Prabhupada mentioned in the next paragraph. Then he gives a story from Skanda Purana of a hunter, and Narad Muni, Angira Muni coming and meeting with them. So here I have a, uske baad in the next paragraph, page number 117, let me just give you synopsis what's going on. In the next page, Prabhupada mentions, Srila Rupa Goswami says there are 9 limbs of bhakti: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smarana, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. The beauty of bhakti is if you become attached to any of the limbs, even one limb, you can attain perfection. So at the end of page 117, in the last paragraph on that page, Prabhupada gives examples for Shravanam, Parikshit Maharaj; for Kirtanam, Sukdev Goswami. Like that, Prabhupada gives examples of different personalities who excelled in bhakti or becoming attached to one of the limbs. Like that, the discussion comes. So, let me ask you a question. Vairagya. We have to be careful of extreme ends of Vairagya. Then if that is the case, what about the renunciation of Goswamis? They were really renounced, yes? And the glory of their renunciation is such that every night they will sleep under a different tree. They were so renounced that they didn't wanted, to get attached to any tree. They didn't wanted, sometimes like in Brahmachari Ashram, although Brahmacharis have given everything, yet they come to Brahmachari Ashram and they become attached to their one corner, which is 6x2 area where they sleep. And then they fight. This is my corner. This is my center. I sleep here. And sometimes there is a struggle to go and put their bedding first. And just like in India, I don't know if you all remember, before this internet booking system came, do you know how the seats used to get booked in India? If you have to travel in a bus and train, how seat booking used to happen before the technology descended in India? Anyone knows?
Who keeps the bag first?
So your parent will throw a napkin, and whoever napkin falls first on the seat gets reserved. and then it just so happened by the time you climb up the bus and you go there, and maybe because of some wind or something, your handkerchief might have fallen here and there, and somebody else come and sit, and then there is a Mahabharat. Hey, mera handkerchief tha yaar. How come you sit down? So you remember those good old days of booking seats. So what was I saying about? Yeah, Goswamis. What would you say? Why Goswamis were so renounced? Or let's say we're talking about renunciation only of one aspect, that they were sleeping underneath different trees every night. Any idea why were they doing like this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I think I remember hearing Prabhu because they didn't want even to get attached to the tree where they are sleeping. So they said that we won't sleep under
This is,
I could be
yeah,
wrong.
no. This is a very standard answer generally we will say, because they were afraid of getting attached to the trees. That's the reason I quoted a brahmachari story. But let me tell you, their conscience is far greater than brahmacharis, okay? I don't think so. They will fight on a place. And when that too, in Vrindavan, there was no scarcity of place and forest. There was abundance of it. So there has to be more deeper meaning to that. Anything else? Okay, Maithili, Madan Maithili, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, you told that each person's detachment level comes according to their bhakti.
Okay. The correct answer is because Vrindavan is a place where Krishna had performed his pastimes all over the place, right? So every night they used to sleep under a different tree. Why? Because whenever they'll find another tree and sleep there in the night, they would have the memories of all the pastimes Krishna performed there. So that was a reason to develop their relationship with Krishna more than to be on this ground of to be detached from the location. So they would have memories of all the pastime being performed at that particular place, like that. So Krishna consciousness is complete. We have already discussed. How does Prabhupada's mission reflect the principle of Yukta Vairagya in our Krishna consciousness? We use all the advanced technology. So our principle, we can discuss in different levels. For example, in a case of a brahmachari, whatever he does, whatever charity he receives, or whatever students he cultivates, everything belongs to Guru and Krishna. You cannot claim this is mine, and anything and everything we do it under the direction of our seniors. Similarly, in the case of our congregation also, we work in our life, all of your householders, you're working, you're raising kids, etc., etc. It is all done under the guidance of seniors of how much to engage with the material energy and when to withdraw from the material energy. And simultaneously, you're not only working, you're not only raising your family, there's so much stress given in our Krishna consciousness or ISKCON to preach. So, people try to distribute Prabhupada books. So your professional life, your social circle becomes a wonderful opportunity to share Krishna consciousness with others. That's how we take every opportunity given to us to engage in Krishna consciousness. So that's the subject matter. We complete this chapter number 14, and now we're going to come on the subject of Raganuga and Raganuga. To conclude with, in this chapter, presentation here, we explained how attachment to acquiring jnana and vairagya may hinder progress in bhakti, and we briefly also discussed about how Prabhupada's mission reflects the principle of yukta vairagya. Let's come to the next chapter called as Raganuga Bhakti, chapter 15 and 16. I see a hand from Mother Mayapur Shashi.
Prabhu, I just would like to add a point. Prabhu.
Yes, please.
I think it's only in our ISKCON temples that the pujaris don't take the money which is put in the plates. Otherwise, in other temples, the pujaris' eyes are always on the plate. The flowers that you get or the extra prasadam that you get depends on how much you put on the plate. It's only in our temples that the pujaris don't even touch the Lakshmi that is given by people, and the flowers
Correct.
that people get are all not based on the money. That's something very, very nice practice that we follow, Prabhu.
Yeah,
that's an observation.
Correct. I would like to add a point to it, so you have a broader understanding of this principle. How many of you have been to Nathdwara temple? Anyone here? Srinathji temple, Nathdwara? So if you go to Nathdwara temple and you put whatever dakshina into the plate, you will see the same thing what Mother Mayapur Shashi was saying right now. No pujari would take anything from the plate and put in his pocket. No pujari would ask you to give any donation there. Just like in our ISKCON temples, So for the first time when I went to Nadwara temple, I was really surprised because, being in this dress and taking a group of devotees around, you really get harassed because the pujaris are very smart. They know who is the leader and they catch the leader. And they'll ask, okay, kuch donation do, kuch donation. So at that point of time, I had become a little disturbed because of so much, pujaris harassing like that. So I remember when I went to the Srinath temple, we had taken a yatra, and it was evening time. I went alone before anyone else just to take a darshan. As soon as I saw a pujari, I kind of started running away in a different direction, thinking that he'll catch me, my darshan would not happen. And I ended up interacting with another pujari. And to my surprise, I realized they were just like every ISKCON Punjari, they just focus on, why are you here? Anything we can do for you, like that. They had no intention of taking anything from you, which was very unlike if you go to certain ancient temples in India. So I was quite intrigued. I just couldn't believe that this could happen like this if you have been to Jagannath Puri and some other places where people really ask you for. And then when I looked into it, then I realized this is Nathdwara temple, like ISKCON, is run by a trust. ISKCON is a trust run by ISKCON temples are run by a trust. Similarly, Sri Nathdwara temple is run by a trust, and one of the trustee of Nathdwara temple is Dhirubhai Ambani of Mr. Ambani's family. So everything of the pujaris are taken care. They have big goshalas. They have thousands of cows. Every pujari have their own cottage to stay. They're provided with prasadam and facilities because their physical needs are taken care. Nobody has to put their hand forward to ask for anything. Now, the truth on the other side, why in certain temples, even you go to Srirangam, even they would ask there and other places. Why they do so? Because whatever comes on the thali is actually the major portion of their livelihood. In today's situation, most of the temples in India are not taken care by the state, although the temples lie under the state, pujaris hardly get anything. They're totally neglected. And everyone, see, unless you're physically taken care, you cannot be spiritually nourished at a level of sadhaka, unless you are a siddha. So because of this, we have this bad experience in India at many temples. ISKCON being an institution and trust, therefore we are fortunate that we don't have this culture here. But there are many temples in India which are run by trust. No pujari would ask you for anything. You give any dakshina, they don't even look at it. Everything goes into the hundi, because they're taken care. All right, mother. So that was a good input. So thank you. Any other comment or anything? Yes, Jai Prabhu.
Probably, so regarding jnana, you were mentioning that it is like this Bhakti Shastri course that we are doing comes under a kind of jnana that we should be cultivating. But then where do we draw the line? Because even in ISKCON, from like all the variety of lectures and initiatives that we hear, there are a lot of things that come up, like living a Vedic Ayurvedic lifestyle. Living a lifestyle based on Ayurveda. That is not really Bhakti jnana, so to say directly. Just as an example.
See, those are preaching initiatives to connect people of different mindset. There are a lot of people today who have interest in Ayurveda and yoga. And to bridge a gap between us and them is to speak their language. Do you know what was the subject matter of Prabhupada's initial Bhagavad-Gita classes? Or do you know what was the advertisement that Prabhupada published for his first Bhagavad-Gita classes? Anyone knows here? Srila Prabhupada promoted his Bhagavad-Gita classes not as Bhagavad-Gita classes. Prabhupada promoted as Sanskrit classes because he saw some students having interest in learning Sanskrit. So Prabhupada said, okay, on every Wednesday and Friday evening, something like was a schedule, so-and-so Swamiji will teach Sanskrit and people will come. And what Prabhupada taught in that Sanskrit class? Bhagavad-Gita shlokas. And then he taught Bhagavad-Gita. This is the bridge program, even Prabhupada did it. Of course, Prabhupada was direct, Prabhupada was direct. So when you have these initiatives, it's not necessarily meant for you. ISKCON is a big institution and we are catering to a large population of varieties of population. And similarly, devotees within ISKCON have various degree of strength and they're trying to utilize their strength and knowledge, whatever they had before coming to ISKCON, to, connect with those people in that background. Like that. Okay? Hare Krishna. Yeah. So let's go back to the slide deck. Let me give you a little overview of chapter number 15 and 16. Let's talk briefly about it, give you a synopsis, then we'll take a break, and then we'll get into the details. So, what bhakti are we talking about so far? All of you have just studied 64 limbs or regulative principles of bhakti. These 64 limbs of bhakti are of which bhakti? Please say that. Unmute yourself and say who wants to give an answer. Yes, Mother Varsha.
Vaidhi Bhakti Prabhu?
Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti has two parts. Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Now we are about to enter into the subject matter Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And then after Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti comes Bhava Bhakti. And finally, our discussion on Nectar devotion concludes with Prema Bhakti. So what is Raga Anuga Bhakti? Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Vaidhi, which means Vidhi and Vidhan, where the inspiration is the rules and regulations, instructions of Guru. Raga Anuga, where inspiration is your natural attraction. Raga means attraction. And Anuga, it is not called Raga Bhakti, it is called Raga Anuga Bhakti. The inspiration in this stage is your, is your attraction towards Krishna. That attraction could be towards chanting the holy names, towards the kirtans, towards deity darshan, towards deity dressing, or whatnot. That is called as Raga. Anuga, why Raga Anuga? Anuga, Anugaman, which means to follow in the footsteps. The word Anu, we'll discuss about the etymological meaning of this word Anu in Nectar of Instruction details, but Anuga, Anugaman, to follow behind. That is Anuga, to follow in the footsteps. Now question arises, Raga Anuga Bhakti has to be done following in the footsteps of. So here let me make one point, then I'll go to the details of it. Very first point, of whatever stage of Bhakti you are, one thing that all of us have to figure it out, sooner the better, is our role model, our hero in Krishna consciousness. We all have to have a hero in Krishna consciousness, or heroine, the role model, I don't want to use that word, but you understood the meaning, right? Now let me emphasize a little bit on the subject matter of role model, then I'll come to Raganuga. See, Bhakti is largely a subject matter of inspiration. In fact, not only Bhakti, even in material life, whatever we do is based on inspiration. That's what human life is all about. Wherever we are inspired, we naturally have attention follows. So, for example, you remember your school days or college days, maybe in your rooms there was a photo of maybe Salman Khan, Hrithik Roshan or Sachin Tendulkar. I don't know what were the choices of the ladies. I'm speaking for the men. Yes or no? All the men relate to it. You had your favorite star. And when you went and watched the movie of that favorite star, you came back, you had your list of dresses you're going to purchase, which was look-alike what that hero wore. Yes or no? Mera hero wore cut sleeve. I'm also going to wear cut sleeve. That mindset. Why? The role model. I'm attracted to that person, and so whatever he does, that anuga becomes natural. Yes or no? That inspiration will naturally come to whatever he does. For example, in the advertisement industries, why you have celebrities? Why you don't have commoners like you and me giving and going an advertisement? Because celebrity, the meaning of celebrity, that there are so many followers of them. So whatever celebrity does, others would follow. So largely that's how our life functions. To be progressive in Krishna consciousness, therefore all of us should have at least 1 to 2 role models. And I would say, at my personal capacity, if I'm allowed to make this comment, I would say that we are so fortunate to be part of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where we have abundance of heroes, abundance of role models, so many great personalities. I would say we are so fortunate to have so many of them, and every particular area you can find a hero. For example, when it comes to administration or management, and of course, particularly for this purpose, let's say, the first name comes to my mind is His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj. I'm a very lazy fellow in the subject matter of management, but I have to do it nonetheless. So whenever I'm going through my crisis of faith in management, I always remember the example of Maharaj. Okay, Maharaj is so, even at such an age, he's always there for all the meetings. I should push myself. Similarly, is for morning program attendance. His morning program attendance is impeccable. So like that, you'll find in Vaishnava relationship, in humility, we have example of His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. In preaching spirit, nobody can beat His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. Even while he was hospitalized, he was giving online classes. He was unmatched person in this particular capacity, and you can keep on quoting like this. So we have to have some people who inspire us on our path of bhakti. Then bhakti becomes an adventurous journey. Imagine you say, I have nobody. My only role model is Srila Prabhupada, which is also wonderful. Now, if you say my only role model is Srila Prabhupada, then it is not so far away to say my only role model is Srila Rupa Goswami. Then it is also not far away to say my only role model is Shri Krishna. Yes, great. But you can also find some inspiration from the living examples. Why? Because they teach us the way we live our life, how to be progressive in Krishna consciousness. So even at our current stage, maybe the baby stage, all of us would have some people who inspires us. Yes or no? And there are some devotees about whom we love talking because whenever we discuss their story, it just fills our heart with so much gratitude, fills our heart with so much love and affection for what either they have done for us or what they're doing for others. Now, this is at this stage. Now come to the Raganuga Bhakti. Raga means attraction for Krishna, developing attraction for Krishna, following in the footsteps of a devotee. Which footsteps of a devotee? That devotee is called as Ragatmika Bhakta. Is it making sense? So Raganuga Bhaktas, role models are called as Ragatmika Bhaktas. Ragatmika Bhaktas are not the Bhaktas of this world. They are eternal associates of the Lord. Raga, attachment, attraction, Atmika, their self is entirely made of attraction to Krishna. That is called as Ragatmika Bhaktas. So in that way, the devotees who have gone to the spontaneous devotion service or Raganuga Bhakti in one sense, they find some special relish or attraction towards some of these Ragatmika Bhaktas. So they hear about them, they like to know how they render service to their Guru, how they render service to Shri Radha and Krishna, etc. And in the same mood, they try to cultivate their devotional service. That becomes Raga Anuga Bhakti, following in the footsteps of Ragatmika Bhaktas. Is that making a little sense? So in the beginning, we were talking about role models from our circle who inspires us to move forward in bhakti. Now we are talking about role models who are eternally associated with Krishna and they are directly serving Krishna. So that capture of that attraction happens in the Raganuga stage, where somebody becomes very attracted to Srila Rupa Goswami or different personalities like that, and they want to engage in devotional service like that, like these personalities. So in chapter number 15 and chapter number 16, Raganuga subject matter is discussed. So before we can discuss Raganuga Bhakti, we have to describe about Ragatmika Bhaktas. Chapter 15, please make a correction. It says Raganuga Bhaktas. It is not about Raganuga Bhaktas. Chapter 15 only speaks about Ragatmika Bhaktas. So wherever you see Raganuga written in chapter 15, cut it off, strike it off, write it Ragatmika Bhaktas. And then chapter 16 talks about Raganuga Bhaktas, Raganuga Bhakti or Raganuga Bhaktas. All right, this is the subject matter of discussion. In this subject matter, we're going to talk about who are Ragatmika Bhaktas, what are the types of Ragatmika Bhakti, Kama Rupa, Sambandha Rupa Bhakti, their categorizations, and few other subject matter will be discussed by Srila Rupa Goswami into this. Of course, details of Kama Rupa Bhakti and the Sambandha Rupa Bhakti, those discussion would happen like this. All right. And then chapter 16 will talk about Raganuga Bhakta. What are Raganuga Bhakta? What are the process of attaining Raganuga Bhakti? That will be described in this chapter number 16. So we welcome everyone to a very, very interesting subject matter, a subject matter of our aspiration, Raganuga Bhaktas, a level of devotion where there is a natural attraction for the Lord, where our attraction to the Lord is not governed by certain rules and regulations, but we have attained the purification of heart to a degree. This is beyond anartha nivritti largely, where now we find our relish in practicing any of the limbs of Krishna consciousness, a great sense of satisfaction, where we are eager to hear Krishna Katha. We are eager to run to temple and take darshan of the Lord. We find great joy in serving prasadam to others, or doing any kind of service for the Lord for that reason. And it's a sense of a life's fulfillment in a bhakti like that. So how many of you would like to be on that level of consciousness, experiencing this kind of a satisfaction in bhakti? Please raise your hands. So it's indeed a very, very important subject matter, where we're going to talk about the philosophy of Raganuga Bhakti, and also how do we come to that stage of bhakti. Of course, that's not a very detailed discussion, but whatever Srila Rupa Goswami mentioned, we'll try to discuss that. And can we request all our participants who have assumingly have written back by now to switch on their cameras? I'll repeat what Radheshampur told me. There should be 2 attendants for the class. One at the beginning and one after the break. Because some people remains only up to the break and they go after the break. So I don't see our host except for Harinam Prabhu and Nitai Prabhu. Nitai Prabhu and Harinam Prabhu, please take a snapshot of the screen right now, and then also accordingly mark the attendance before break, after break, like that. Okay? Hare Krishna. So let's go back to the presentation. Let's take a look at the subject matter at hand today. Raganuga Bhakti. Raga. Let's have any other family or any other Prabhu and Mother would like to read it. One we can do like that. Or maybe any 2 people can read it. We need 2 volunteers here. We'll have something on slide for all of you. We only allow for those whose cameras are on, not for those whose cameras are off. Okay, Mother Shri Lakshmi and Mother Varsha, both of you toggle among yourself. Please read. So if you read the first content, then Mother Varsha, vice versa, could read other one. Okay, please go ahead. Can you all unmute yourself?
Spontaneous raga. Spontaneous swarasiki absorption. Parama vistara in one's object of love is called raga. Spontaneous absorption in one's object of love is called raga.
Raga.
So
that's okay. Raga also means color. Uske rang mein rang jana. You might have heard of this Hindi statement. That is what raga. So much absorbed. That's the point here. Please read.
Raga, spontaneous emotion, more effectively allows us to absorb our mind in Krishna than we can absorb them with regulated practice. Kamsa's fear and Shishupal's envy made them obsessed in thought of Krishna.
So, in the 7th canto, Narad Muni says to Yudhishthira Maharaj that people became, kind of a Raganuga Bhaktas, which means always thinking about Krishna in different relationship. Kamsa and Shishupal out of envy, Gopis out of love, Yadus out of their familial affection, friendship, like that, and different examples are given. So let's take a look. The examples are given on the next page. Please read out.
raga. In the 7th canto, Narada describes 6 modes of spontaneous attachment. Lusty desire in the gopis, fear in Kamsa, envy in Sisupala, kinship in the Vrishnis or Yadavas, affection in the Pandavas, devotional service in Narada Krishna.
So there are some 6 varieties of through which absorption in Krishna can happen. Now, this will be a discussion in the chapter. So because the slide is there, I can make a point now maybe. Now, Kamsa and Shishupal, even they were absorbed in Krishna. So would their absorption be called as Shuddha Bhakti? Yes, give me thumbs up. No, give me thumbs down. Now, their absorption, although they were fully absorbed, far greater absorbed than us. Nagmani glorifies Kamsa. Bhagavatamritam talks about it. When Nagmani glorifies it, oh, Kamsa is such a great devotee, he always thought of Krishna. Even while going to sleep, even in dreams, he saw Krishna. And if he ever woke up and he saw anywhere blue color, he thought Krishna is there. How much absorption? But why we don't call it Shuddha Bhakti? Because it was averse to Krishna. It was based out of deep envy towards Krishna. So a point is raised. Kamsa was killed by Krishna, got liberated. Shishupal got liberated. And the devotees of the Lord also get liberated. So does it mean all of them get the same liberation? One is performing pure devotional, other is performing unfavorable devotional service, and both of them got same liberation. Is it yes or no? And the answer is no. They do not get same liberation. There are 5 varieties of liberation: Sayujya, Samipya, Salokya, Sarishti, and like this 5 kinds of liberation. Sayujya, to become one with the Lord. First canto Srimad Bhagavatam reveals Lord exists in 3 levels. What is that? Vadanti tat tattvavitas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwaniti shabdyate. There are 3 levels of realization: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan level of realization. So Shishupal, Kamsa, people like this who perform unfavorable devotional service, they get liberation, but up to Brahman realization. Whereas in the case of the devotees of the Lord, they get liberation up to the level of they get to enter the the Goloka Vrindavan. So example is given when it is said in scriptures they all got liberation. Prabhupada gives an example, just like somebody enters the kingdom is not same as somebody entering into the private chambers of the king. Yes or no? Somebody enters the kingdom means he has been allowed in the kingdom, but it does not mean he is allowed entry into the private chambers of the king. So who is allowed entry into the private chambers? One who is very close to you. So devotees are those personalities who allowed access into Krishna's pastime of Goloka Vrindavan. And I believe there are one exception, for sometimes there are always exception rule. There is one exception to this rule for which Uddhava sings the glories of the Lord's compassion in the 3rd canto, and that exception is Putana. Putana came with an intention to kill Krishna, but Lord Shri Krishna gave her the position of a mother. Not the mother in that sense, but take care mother in the spiritual world. That is why Uddhava glorifies Lord Shri Krishna. Alright, so this was a subject matter about, Kamsa's absorption. It is absorption, and that absorption purifies to an extent where it awards them liberation, but liberation is not same as the liberation of devotees. Okay, please continue ahead.
Raga. All 6 types of spontaneous attraction are liberating. Only 2 of the 6 are genuine types of Ragatmika Bhakti that will award through highest goal of prema, waves of devotion.
Which 2? That is the next slide. Let's take a look. Sakama Rupa Sambandha Rupa Cheti Bhaveda Dvida. There are 2 kinds of Ragatmika Bhaktis. Kamarup, Sambandharup. Please read out translation.
There are 2 types of Ragatmika Bhakti: that impelled by conjugal feelings, Kamarupa, and that impelled by other relationships, Sambandha Rupa.
So Kama Rupa, it refers to the conjugal affairs of gopis towards Krishna. Kama, it is said to be Kama, which in English translates to lust, but is not the mundane lust. So what is the understanding of this? For example, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, 4th chapter, verse number 165, Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj gives the definition of lust and love. What is the definition of lust? Atmendriya priti vancha tare balikam Krishnendriya priti ichha dhare premanam. Atmendriya priti vancha. Atmendriya priti vancha. One who desires to satisfy, gratify oneself, one's own senses. Atmendriya priti vancha tare balikama. That is said to be kama, lust. Krishnendriya priti ichha dhare premanam. But one whose desire is to serve the senses of Krishna, then it is called to be prema. So, technically, kama rupa, it does not indicate that Gopi's attraction for Krishna was for their own gratification. It is a poetic way of explaining that. Admins are requested to see everyone is muted. You can just see there is some background noise. Okay. What was I saying? So we'll see in the purport of explanation of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada explains, it does not indicate that gopis had kama or lust towards Krishna. That actually indicates that they had natural attraction to Krishna. And their attraction was to serve the senses of Krishna. By all means, they wanted to please Krishna in a conjugal affair relationship. That is kama rupa. And sambandha rupa, the vasalya, sakhya, shanta, dasya, all that comes under sambandha rupa. Let's go back to presentation. Let's go through with that. We'll come back again. So what is the definition of Ragatmika Bhakti? Ishte Swarasiki Raga, defined by Srila Rupa Goswami. Parama Vishtata Bhavet, Tanmaya Bhavet Bhakti, Satra Ragatmiko Dita. Somebody read out.
When one becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his natural inclination to love is fully absorbed in the fruit of the Lord. That is called transcendental attachment, and devotional service according to that attachment is called Ragatmika or spontaneous devotional service.
Okay, no point to read the references. This is from here. Now, spontaneous devotional service means there is no cause and effect for it. Prabhupada will use again as spontaneous. There is no cause and effect for it. The cause and effect are both the same nonetheless. Spontaneous means that is what their nature is. Krishna is there, they get attracted. Just like Vidura meets Uddhav and asks Uddhavji about the well-being of Lord Shri Krishna or the Yaduvamsha. As soon as Uddhav hears about Krishna, he goes into ecstasy. Third canto talks about it. And he goes into such an ecstasy, he is talking in a non-sequential way pastimes of Krishna. Sometimes pastime will come like this, and then later on pastime like this. Then he goes into ecstasy, the tears are flowing from his eyes, and after a long time he becomes stable again like that. As soon as he heard the name of Krishna from the mouth of Vidura, he forgot everything. Was so attracted like that. So that is Raga Atmika, spontaneous devotion service. What is Raganuga? The definition of Raganuga by Srila Rupa Goswami is Virajantim abhivyaktam vrajavasi janadisu Ragatmikam anushashta yasa raganugochate. Padhiye.
Devotional service in spontaneous love is vividly expressed and manifested by inhabitants of Vrindavana. Devotional service that accords with their devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti, or devotional service following in the wake of spontaneous loving service.
So Raganuga, as I explained before, Anuga to follow in the first verse of Ragatmika Bhaktas, the celebrated, eternal, liberated devotees of the Lord, always living in the spiritual world. To follow in their footsteps is said to be Raga Anuga Bhakti. So, what are the qualifications to perform Raga Anuga Bhakti? Please read. Tat tad bhavadi madhurye shrute dhiryat apekshate Natra Shastram na yuktim cha tallo bhodpati lakshanam. Translation.
Qualification for Raganuga Bhakti. When an advanced realized devotee hears about the affairs of the devotees of Vrindavan in the mellows of Santa, Dasya,
Shanta.
Sakya,
Shantaras.
Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakyaras, Vatsaliras, Madhuriras, he becomes inclined in this way, and his intelligence become attracted. Indeed, he begins to covet that particular type of devotion.
So what it means, qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is, one of the qualification is constant hearing. And through that hearing, one develops an attraction towards a particular rasa, could be Shanta, Vasalya, Madhurya, etc. And then in that rasa, whichever devotee is performing service to the Lord, he becomes attracted to that devotee and he wants to follow in the footsteps of that devotee. So it begins with proper hearing. Next, qualification for Raganuga. Please read.
When such covetousness is awakened, one's intelligence no longer depends on the instruction of Shastra, revealed scripture, logic, or argument.
Covetousness here also refers to lolium, greed. The intense desire to have Krishna. When that greed develops, the longing develops, the lolium develops to have Krishna, then that person is not need to be governed by one's intelligence, the rules and regulation, do's and don'ts like that. That's the point here. Please read out.
These Raganuga devotees do not follow the regulative principles of devotional service very strictly, but by spontaneous nature they become attracted to some of the eternal devotees such as Nanda or Yashoda, and then try to follow in their footsteps spontaneously.
So one very important point. I'm just going through the presentation here, and then we'll come and read Prabhupada, what Prabhupada have said, and we'll have a further discussion that time. So it is said these Raganuga devotees do not follow the regulative principles very strictly. Would anyone like to explain what you understand by this statement? Let me show you again. What regulative principles of devotional service they do not follow very strictly? What do you understand by this? I guess Mother Medhavni he attends the Hindi lectures also, so maybe you might have heard there. We'll see from others what others have to say for it. Mother Medhavni is generally ahead of time because she attends Hindi Bhakti Shastri lessons classes also, where I have completed. All right, so let's go ahead and hear from others. Rishikesh, Pankaj Poo, and then Mother Jyoti will go back to you. Your voice is faint. You want to speak up loud?
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Good.
My understanding is that the bhakti is not restricted. I mean, if the chanting is done, it's not that I have to stop at 16. It might go to 64, but 28. So it is like unlimited.
Regulative principles are not followed strictly. What regulative principles?
We have the regulative principles. I mean, like chanting at least. So there is no at least there. I mean,
Okay. Thank you. Let's hear from others. Mother Jyoti or Desh Deepak Prabhu, and then after that Mother Manju. Mother Jyoti?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, my understanding is that they did follow all the regulative principles. It's only that they didn't have to take an effort to, like how we take an effort, because we have
What
no
regulative principles is my question. Define regulative principles. How many regulative principles do we have? It sounds like an initiation interview question now. Recite 10 Namaprad. So that is my question to all of you. How many regulative principles do we have? Huh? Okay. How many of you say we have 4 regulative principles? Please raise your hand. Now, because I'm making a question like this, some have become a little doubtful. Really? Do we have 4 or more? All right. Let me give you an answer. All of you are failed in the exam. We don't have 4 regulative principles. We have 64 regulative principles. What we discussed right now, the 64 items of bhakti, they are also said as regulative principles. So please understand, when it is said Raganuga Bhakta does not strictly follow regulative principles. It's not about the four regulative principles. Oh, he is so absorbed in his bhakti that sometimes he goes and eat, onion garlic wala masala dosa. He saw it as a Mahaprasadam Rajbhog plate, and he was so much absorbed in Krishna's prem. He thought it is a Rajbhog plate, and he took garlic wala masala dosa. Or he was so thirsty running behind Krishna, he grabbed a glass of a not herbal tea, or what is that, tea, masala tea or coffee. No, not that way. There is no question of breaking that. What it means, they're not so strict in the 64 items. We should not. So that's the point. Is that clear? That was the point here. I wanted to make, because many times we make a mistake. We think there are 4 regulative principles. All right, continue. Who was reading it? Oh, this was done, right? Okay, let's go next page. Please read.
Such eagerness to follow in the footsteps of the denizens of Raja is not possible unless one is freed from material contamination. There is a stage called Anartha Nivritti, the disappearance of all material contamination.
So this happens only after Anartha Nivritti. So this qualification or prerequisite to enter Raganuga stage, it only occurs for those who are beyond anarthas. So that's where this stage manifests. Please go ahead.
If someone hears about the love of the residents of Vrindavana for Krishna, and if he thinks, I'm so lowly, I'm so fallen, that is such a high thing, I could never have that, that is not greed. Greed is, I may be a fool, I may be a rascal, I may be a nonsense, but still I must have it, and somehow or another I must get it. I must get it. That is greed, no reservation.
In other words, becoming totally shameless when it comes to, attracting Krishna. Whatever my situation is, I am going to get it. That is what greed means. Okay, read next.
Doesn't mean that he doesn't follow the process, but he follows the process out of greed. So if he has greed, he will follow the same process that the devotees in Vaidhi Bhakti follow. But he won't follow with the idea that the scriptures say that has to do with. He'll follow it with the idea that in the end, I will get what I want.
So there is a lolium. There is this greed which is being discussed here, which is an attracting point. I want it. I want Krishna. I want bhakti. And that inspires persons to continue doing that. Practicing Raganuga Bhakti. So that was the qualification to practice Raganuga Bhakti. What are the qualification? If we quickly reiterate, first is freed from anartha nivritti. And second is sincere desire or greed to have Krishna. Now, practice of Raganuga Bhakti. What are the practice of Raganuga Bhakti? Let's see it. Krishnam smaran janam chasya preshtam nija samhitam tat katharatas chaso kuryad vasam vraje sada. Please read out.
The devotee should always think of Krishna within himself and should choose a very dear devotee who is a servitor of Krishna in Vrindavan. One should constantly engage in topics about that servitor and his loving relationship with Krishna, and one should live in Vrindavan. If one is physically unable to go to Vrindavan, he should mentally live there.
Hare Krishna. So we'll take one more slide, we'll pause, we'll go back to the book and we'll read from there and we'll come back. This is right now on the 16th chapter. We're discussing about Raganuga Bhakti. We'll need to explain a little bit more about Ragatmika. We'll go back to the book. But before that, here, if you pay attention, practicing Raganuga Bhakti means one is always meditating on the relationship of service between Krishna and his dear devotees according to one's aspiration. For example, Prabhupada gives an example of somebody, role model, if I say in my language, is Rupa Goswami. Now, Rupa Goswami has two forms. One is of Sadhaka, other is of Siddha. Sadhaka as Rupa Goswami and Siddha as Rupa Manjari. So somebody is attracted by the devotional service of Srila Rupa Goswami, then externally he will practice as a sadhaka, which means Rupa Goswami. He will follow all the rules regulations very strictly, but internally he will meditate on the pastimes, on the services of Rupa Manjari done to the gopis and Krishna. Like that, one cultivates the mood of bhakti here. So, please read out.
Practicing Raganuga Bhakti. Meditate on the relationship of service between Krishna and his dear devotee according to one's devotional aspirations. A person who aspires to constantly remember Krishna and his eternal devotees is advised to physically or mentally take shelter of Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna. So this is how we practice Raganuga Bhakti. I'll explain about this aspect. I have already spoken briefly about meditating. Now, second is living in Vrindavan, what it means. We'll come back to it. So, let's go back to the book. I want all of you to open chapter number 15 and we'll read everything what Prabhupada have written, paragraph by paragraph. Is that okay? So, we could have devotees who would like to read. I would request maximum participation in this, and we can have one by one devotees reading one paragraph. Okay? So, let's start with chapter number 15, and at any point of time you feel you have a question to ask, you can ask a question, and as number of hands are there, we'll ask all of them one by one to keep reading para by paragraph. Rishikesh Pankaj, we'll begin with you. I'll ask Nitai Pran Prabhu or Hinam Krishna Prabhu Medhavani to manage this reading exercise now. Please go ahead.
Spontaneous devotional service. Examples of spontaneous devotional service.
Prabhu, you could be a little louder.
Is it better now?
Okay, maybe you can try speaking a little louder. Go ahead.
The examples of spontaneous devotional service can be easily seen in Krishna's direct associates in Vrindavan. The spontaneous dealings of the residents of Vrindavan in relationship with Krishna are called Raganuga. These beings don't have to learn anything about devotional service. They are already perfect in all regulative principles and have achieved the spontaneous loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Hare Krishna.
For example,
So, sorry, but I might interject in between just to give a quick summary. So, the first paragraph talks about who are Ragatmika Bhaktas. They are always eternal, eternally, resident of Vrindavan, and they are the pure devotees of the Lord. They don't have to learn anything about, they don't have to follow any rules and regulation. They are Nitya Siddhas. That is the first paragraph talks about. Let's go to the next paragraph. Mother Harini, you can go and read the next paragraph.
Sri Rupa Goswami has defined Raganuga Bhakti as spontaneous attraction for something, one completely absorbed.
So wherever you read the word Raganuga, please read it as Ragatmika. This is not Raganuga, it is Ragatmika. Make a correction in your books also, okay? Please read ahead.
Okay. Devotional service executed with such feelings of spontaneous love is called Raganuga Bhakti. Devotional service under the heading of Raganuga can be further divided into two categories. One category is called natural attraction, and the other is called relationship.
Thank you. So you can write down sensual attraction is called as Kama Rupa and relationship is called as Sambandha Rupa. Samandeep Prabhu, go ahead.
In this connection, there is a statement by Narad Muni to Yudhishthira in the 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 30 of Srimad Bhagavatam. There Narada says, "My dear king, there are many devotees who first become attracted to the personality of Godhead for purposes of sense gratification, from being envious of him, out of fear of him, or from desiring to associate affectionately with him. Ultimately, these attractions become freed from all material contamination, and gradually the worshipper develops spiritual love and achieves that ultimate goal of life desired by the pure devotee."
Hare Krishna. So we spoke about, right, the attraction of Kamsa and Shishupal. That is the verse here. Mother Satya, next paragraph. We have discussed these points. We are going through the Prabhupada's writings. If any point in time I reiterate, you have a question, you can interject and pause and we can discuss that. Mother Satya, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Galat Pranam. I have a question.
Yes, Mother.
Okay, so here we are talking about like Raganuga devotee. So I just want to understand why are we saying, out of fear and all of that. So these are all beginning stages, isn't it?
No, these are not beginning stages. These are the people who were totally absorbed in Krishna. Kamsa was what? Kamsa was 24/7 absorbed. Even Gopi's example is given. Is that a beginning stage?
No, but Kamsa is the Raganuga Bhakti.
No. What is said is about, you have to read it attentively. It is Narad Muni saying that, yena tena prakarena, as we have read in Nectar devotion, get attracted to Krishna. So there are devotees, there are people who get attracted to Krishna, absorbed in Krishna, thinking about Krishna 24/7 in different relationship. Dveshad is the word used by Narad Muni. Dvesha means dvesh by Kamsa and Shishupal. Dveshacha, and what is a kama, attraction, that is of gopis. Then sambandha, that is of yadu. Like that, in this different relationship, there are people who were completely attracted to Krishna. That is a point being made here. Hare Krishna. All right, that's a point is being made here. Please continue. Mother Satya, next paragraph.
Yes, sir. The gopis may be considered to be examples of spontaneous love and sensual attraction. The gopis are young girls and Krishna is a young boy. Superficially, it seems that the gopis are attracted to Krishna on grounds of sex. Similarly, King Kamsa was attracted to Krishna because of fear. Kamsa was always fearful of Krishna because it had been foretold that his sister's son Krishna would kill him. Shishupala was also always envious of Krishna, and the descendants of King Yadu, due to their family relationship with Krishna, were always thinking of him as one of their members. All of these different kinds of devotees have a spontaneous attraction for Krishna in different categories, and they achieve the same desired goal of life.
So you got the point? They had a spontaneous attraction for Krishna in different categories. So their absorption in Krishna was 24/7. But Kamsa and Shishupal are not called as pure devotees because their attraction was flavored by dvesha. But they were 24/7 thinking and absorbed in Krishna. And because they were thinking about Krishna, they were given liberation. So this desired goal of life, in the next two paragraphs, now there is a discussion on the devotees and non-devotees like Kamsa. Although they were fortunate enough to always remember Krishna, they do not get the same destination. And they at max can get Brahman realization, but the devotees get the opportunity to go back to Godhead. Please skip next two paragraphs and you will see a next paragraph titled as An Analogy Can Be Given. Prabhupada gives an example to explain that. Please read from there. Nitai Pranpu, you're the next person. You can. We'll take your question. I know you're going to continue that. Let's go through the chapter first. Let's hear what Prabhupada says first. We'll come back to it. Nitai Pranpu, please read.
An analogy can be given with the sun globe and the sunshine. To remain in the sunshine does not mean one has to go to the sun globe. The temperature of the sun globe is different from the temperature of the sunshine. One who has gone through the sunshine in jet planes or in a spaceship has not necessarily gone to the sun globe. Although the sunshine and the sun globe are actually one and the same, still there is a distinction. For one is the energy and one is the energetic source. The absolute truth and his bodily effulgence are in the same way simultaneously one and different. Kamsa and Shishupal attained the absolute truth, but they were not allowed to enter into the Golak Vrindavan abode. Impersonalists and the enemies of the Lord are, because of attraction to Lord, allowed to enter into his kingdom, but they are not allowed to enter into the Vaikuntha planets or the Golaka Vrindavan planet of the Supreme Lord. To enter the kingdom and to enter the king's palace are not the same thing.
Now, in the next paragraph, Prabhupada talks about. Here, there is a discussion about devotee or non-devotee in one way, but not Kamsa and Shishupala categorized a non-devotee directly because they were fully absorbed in Krishna. Now, in the next paragraph, there's a discussion between personalist versus impersonalist. Now, Prabhupada says even impersonalists, they are also enemies of the Lord, because they say we are Lord, we are also God. So, impersonalists, the liberation that they also get at most of Brahman realization. They do not get anything better than that. And these people, because they do not get the desired goal, that is Ananda, access to Krishna Prem, therefore they get frustrated with their spiritual realization. And after performing long years of meditation in utter aloof or in seclusion, they come back to the worldly life and they do philanthropic activities. And now they want to serve humanity. So that's the point. And this is a fall down from the spiritual platform to a material platform where now you're trying to resolve the material issues of, or affairs. That's what Prabhupada writes. So that's about impersonal is the next this thing. Go to the next, we'll skip the next two paragraphs. In the Brahmanda Purana, it is said, it is stated, let's read that. Mother Bhagavati Karuna, आप पढ़ सकते हैं. What you see on the screen.
In the Brahmanda Purana, it is stated that those who have achieved liberation from material contamination and those who are demons and are filled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead become absorbed in the Brahman concept of life and reside in the spiritual sky, the Brahmajupati. That spiritual sky is far beyond the material sky, and it is confirmed also in the Bhagavad-Gita that beyond this material sky there is another eternal sky. The enemies and the impersonalists may be allowed to enter into this Brahman effulgence. But the devotees of Krishna are promoted all the way to the spiritual planets. Because the pure devotees have developed their spontaneous love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are allowed to enter into the spiritual planets to enjoy the spiritual bliss in association with the Supreme Personality.
So that's, they don't get the same destination. That's the point here. And now there is a discussion from the 10th canto in the next paragraph. Please read who is next, Jai Prabhu. We can keep the screen open. We'll largely read from Prabhupada's, what Prabhupada has written. In the 10th canto, 87th chapter, verse number 23. Please read.
10th canto, 87th chapter, verse 23 of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vedas personified address the Lord in this way. My dear Lord, yogis meditate upon the localized feature, and thus they achieve the spiritual perfection of being merged in the impersonal Brahma-Jyoti. Persons who treat you as an enemy achieve the same perfection without meditation. The gopis who are embraced by your serpentine hand and who have such lusty attitudes also achieve the same perfection. And as far as we are concerned, these different demigods in charge of the different parts of Vedic knowledge, we are always following in the footsteps of the gopis. Thus, we hope to attain the same perfection.
Hare Krishna. Now please highlight the next line. What is this same perfection, same perfection? Everyone attains the same perfection. Somebody gets killed by Krishna, attains the same perfection. Gopis attain the same perfection. No. The same perfection is different. Their liberation, the end result, what they get, what devotees or impersonalists or non-devotees like Kamsa and Shishupal get, they are different. Please read the next line now.
By the same perfection, we must always remember the example of the sun and the sunshine. Those who are impersonalists can merge into the sunshine like Brahma Jyoti, whereas those who are in love with the Supreme Person enter into the supreme abode of the Lord, Golok Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna. So that's about the result of absorption in Krishna, which is being discussed now. And now there's a discussion on Kama Rupa. What is this lusty attitude of gopis? Srila Prabhupada explains, it is not a mundane lust. Who is next? Mother Rupali, go ahead.
The lusty attitude of the gopis does not refer to any sort of sex indulgence. Srila Rupa Goswami explains that this is lusty desire that refers to the devotee's particular attitude of association with Krishna. Every devotee in his perfectional stage has a spontaneous attraction to the Lord. This attraction is sometimes called the lusty desire of the devotee. The lust is the devotee's excessive desire to...
Hare Krishna. Please mark the next line. Now, what is this lusty desire means? Now, in today's Hare Krishna, just 1 second. Hey, who is inside? Haribol? Hey, you're making too much sound. Hare Krishna. So, the words carry a meaning. And these words, according to the time and generation we are in, they get evolved. So today the meaning of lust is, some sensual activity, a lustful attraction. However, the meaning of lust is a particular attraction towards Krishna in a relationship to serve in a certain manner. So what is a lust? The lust here means an excessive desire to please Krishna in a particular capacity. That is the meaning of it. The Kama Rupa Bhakti, to please Krishna, excessive desire to please. And therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself personally established the devotion of gopis to be the highest. Why? Because they were willing, that famous pastime comes, that they were willing to even give the dust of their feet if that would have relieved Krishna's headache, which nobody was willing to give. Why? Because they had that excessive desire to please Krishna in whatever way Krishna wanted. That's some point. And the lust is, that's the next line you want to highlight for yourself. Please go ahead, Mother.
The lust is a devotee's excessive desire to serve the Lord in a particular capacity. Such desire may seem to be desire for enjoying the Lord, but actually the endeavor is to serve the Lord in that capacity. For example, a devotee may be desiring to associate with the personality of Godhead as his covered friend. He will want to serve the Lord by assisting him in controlling the cows in the pasturing ground. This might appear to be a desire to enjoy the company of the Lord, but actually it is a spontaneous love serving him by assisting in managing the transcendental cows.
Hare Krishna. So when it's said to be a lusty desire, the very first thing that comes to your mind is the person wants to enjoy. But when it is put in this context of Kama Rupa Bhakti, it is not that you want to enjoy Krishna. In fact, you want to serve Krishna and you have an excessive desire to serve Krishna. And Prabhupada just gave an example of Gopas assisting Krishna in that way. Externally, it may look like they want to enjoy the association of Krishna, but that's not the meaning. Now comes the discussion of sensual attraction. First 2 paragraphs we have more or less discussed. We'll not go into that. Now please go into the 3rd paragraph, where Prabhupada now talks about if at all it was a mundane lust, then we'll not have great devotees, personalities like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, the sannyasis glorifying that devotion. No, the devotion of gopis are glorified because they had an intense desire to serve Krishna and not serve themselves. Please read out now. Mother Methavni, you are the next.
I should read from great devotees up to the standard.
Yes, please.
Great devotees up to the standard of Uddhava, a very dear friend of God, and he desired to follow in the footsteps of the gopis. So the gopis' love for Krishna is certainly not material lusty desire. Otherwise, how could Uddhava aspire to follow in their footsteps? Another instance is Lord Chaitanya himself. After accepting the sannyasa order of life, he was very, very strict about avoiding association with women, but still, he thought that there is no better method of worshipping Krishna than that conceived by the gopis. Thus, the gopis' method of worshipping the Lord, accidental with the lusty desire, was praised very highly even by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This very fact means that although the attraction of the gopis for Krishna appears to be lusty, it is not in the least bit material. Unless one is fully situated in the transcendental position, the relationship of the gopis with Krishna is very difficult to understand. But because it appears to be just like ordinary dealings with young boys and girls, it is sometimes misinterpreted to be like the ordinary sex of this material world. Unfortunately, persons who cannot understand the transcendental nature of the love of the gopis and Krishna take it for granted that Krishna's love affairs with the gopis are mundane transactions, and therefore they sometimes indulge in painting licentious pictures in some modernistic style.
And in the next paragraph, there is an example of Kubja, who actually had lusty desire, who wanted to enjoy Krishna. So her bhakti is not kama rupa bhakti, her bhakti is kama praya, where kama, her desire to enjoy, was foremost. Like that, the discussion of kama rupa bhakti ends, and now chapter 16 opens up with sambandha rupa bhakti. Santosh Prabhu, go ahead and read the first paragraph of chapter 16, where sambandha rupa bhakti is described.
Spontaneous devotion further describe relationship. That one, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
In the attitude of the denizens of Vrindavana, such as Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, is to be found the ideal transcendental concept of being the father and mother of Krishna, the original personality of Godhead. Actually, no one can become the father or mother of Krishna, but a devotee's possession of such transcendental feelings is called love of Krishna in parental relationship. The Vrishnis, Krishna's relatives at Dwarka, also felt like that. So spontaneous love of Krishna in the parental relationship is found both among those denizens of Dwarka who belong to the dynasty of Vrishni, among the inhabitants of Vrindavana. Spontaneous love of Krishna as exhibited by the Vrishnis and the denizens of Vrindavana is eternally existing in them. In the stage of devotional service, where regulatory principles are followed, there is no necessity of discussing this love, for it must develop of itself at a more advanced stage.
Hare Krishna. Very nice point Prabhupada mentions. I like to read out again. In the stage of devotional service, please go up the last 2-3 lines of the previous paragraph, where regulatory principles are followed, which means at our stage, there is no necessity of discussing this love. It's not a subject matter of discussion. It must develop of itself at a more advanced stage. And what is that advanced stage? Which is at the stage of nishtha, beyond anartha nivritti. Then the subject matter begins to unravel on its own. So this was until now Ragatmika Bhakti, describing Kama Rupa and Sambandha Rupa. And there was a discussion of what are the characteristics of Ragatmika Bhakti. Now, Raganuga Bhakti. What is the eligibility for performing Raganuga Bhakti? Shashwat Prabhu, please read.
Eligibility for spontaneous devotional service. Persons desiring to follow in the footsteps of such eternal devotees of the Lord as the Vaishnavis and Vrindavan denizens are called Raganuga devotees, which means that they are trying to attain to the perfection of those devotees. These Raganuga devotees do not follow the regulative principles of devotional service very strictly, but by spontaneous nature they become attracted to some of the eternal devotees such as Nanda or Yashoda, and they try to follow in their footsteps spontaneously. There is a gradual development of ambition becomes like a particular movie, and this activity is called Raganuga.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, we'll pause there. So as we already discussed, Raganuga Bhaktas does not necessarily follow regulative principles strictly. We all are clear of that now. Correct? Let's go back to slide deck. We'll review through the slide deck and come back to this discussion again. So there are 3 very important verses which are quoted. We'll see, take a look at it. We have given some shlokas also, but Prabhupada gives a translation here. Practicing Raganuga Bhakti, what is described? Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tadbhava lipsuna karya vaja lokanusarataha. Most of these personalities, Ragatmika Bhaktas, have Siddha Roop and Sadhaka Roop. Externally, we should follow their Sadhaka Roop, and internally, we should follow in the mood of their Siddha Roop. Who are the next 2 devotees? Ramesh Prabhu and Harinam Krishna Prabhu. You can partner up and read this one by one, okay? Ramesh Prabhu, please go ahead. Read out.
Practicing Raganuga Bhakti. The advanced devotee who is inclined to spontaneous loving service should follow the activities of a particular associate of Krishna's in Vrindavana. He should execute service externally as a regulative devotee as well as internally from his self-realized position. Thus, he should perform devotional service both externally and internally.
Which means there are 2 things, Sadhaka Roop and Siddha Roop. Please read another devotee.
Sadhaka Rupa refers to the physical body of the practitioner. Siddha Rupa refers to the body which is suitable for one's desired service and which has been developed by internal meditation. Internal.
Which means there are two manifestations. The one is of sadhakas and siddhas. An example of Rupa Goswami is given. Please read out. Ramesh Prabhu.
Residents of
Practicing Raganuga Bhakti. Residents of Goloka Vrindavan exist in two manifestations, as sadhakas and as siddhas. Srila Rupa Goswami, for example, simultaneously exists in Gaura Leela as Srila Rupa Goswami, a sadhaka, and in Krishna Leela as Rupa Manjari as Siddha. One should thus meditate upon these Braja lokas in two ways, externally and internally.
Externally, what it means? Please go ahead.
For example, one who desires to achieve the service and mood of Srila Rupa Goswami would follow in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami sadhana.
Another example, we can, reverse now. Haina Prabhu can read now. Please go ahead.
externally, a devotee who is actually advanced in Krishna consciousness, who is constantly engaged in devotional service, should not manifest himself, even though he has attained perfection. Activities in devotional service under regulated principles must be followed even by the pure devotee.
So, very important point. It's not that somebody who has attained the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, now he has to give up his chanting of 16 rounds because he has become very advanced. He doesn't have to follow Vaishnava culture or etiquettes. No. Even at that stage, in fact, at that stage, person follows more strictly. He is more careful of not, committing any aparadh or getting distracted from that position. So what is happening is right now, this person is fully absorbed. He is constantly meditating. But he cannot let go of Vaishnava culture. He still has to abide by it. If you're living in the temple, you still have to come for morning program. Maybe he has whole night chanted n number of rounds. You have to still externally. And perfect example is Haridas Thakur. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, Haridas, enough. You become so old. You don't have to chant. Haridas said, my dear Lord, I have not yet committed my quota. Now, just to help you know, his quota was not like our quota, 16 rounds. 16 rounds was not even his starting. Sometimes when we go to restaurant, we have a starter. 16 rounds was not even his starter. He was chanting 192 rounds. And he's saying, no, I have not finished my quota. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is saying, sometimes when we don't have a good experience of chanting, imagine that time if Krishna Guru comes, oh, my dear son and daughter, you have chanted all your life. I am so pleased. Now you can take a break. How many think you'll feel like, Hari Bol? Thank you. Finally, I've got liberation now. For so many years, I've been chanting. I was waiting for the day when somebody, my Guru or Krishna will come and say, no more, no more. So that was the case with Haridas Thakur. So that's what I mean by chanting, practicing externally. Now internally. Another devotee, please read.
Internally. For example, one who desires to achieve the service and mood of Srila Rupa Goswami would internally meditate on the activities of Srila Rupa Manjari, nicely described by Raghunatha Dasa Goswami in Vraja Vilasa Stva.
Correct. Go ahead.
By offering her little nuts, by massaging her feet, by bringing her water, by arranging for a secret meeting with Lord Krishna, and by performing many other services. Many gopi maid servants affectionately please be Radha, who is more dear than life. I take shelter of those gopi maid servants who have Sri Rupa Manjari as their leader.
So this is the internal mood which is being described here. Please continue.
Internally, when he realizes his actual position in relationship with the Lord, he can, along with the discharging of regulative service, think within himself of the Lord under the guidance of a particular associate of the Lord and develop his transcendental sentiments in following that associate.
So something very important at this point of time to develop this mood. Let's say Rupa Goswami is the inspiration. So to further enhance your mood of service, now the devotee, of course, he does hearing, but he becomes very selective in hearing. He would like to hear more about Rupa Goswami, more about Rupa Manjari, because more knowledge about the service of Rupa and Rupa Manjari would facilitate his mood of devotion. So here it becomes a little more focused approach. Similarly, this devotee may serve Shri Radha Krishna in a particular mood, which may be a little different than the regular mood which is established here. Okay, let's continue with the discussion. This we have read. Next shloka. Shravanot kirtanadini vaidha bhakti uditani tu yangyani chatanyatra vignayani manishibhi. Learned acharyas know that the 64 practices of Vaidhi Bhakti, headed by hearing chanting, are also useful in Raganuga Bhakti. Do we have any other two volunteers who have not read, would like to read? They can read the other slides. Who have not yet read and have participated. Okay, so those who raise hands, Mother Medhavni, anyone wants to partner up? And Harinam Prabhu. Okay, please read next.
Practicing Raganuga Bhakti. The Raganuga Bhakta does not abandon regular hearing and chanting, but focuses his hearing and chanting upon topics that specifically nourish his serving mode, worshipping the deity, but he does so in a way conducive to his devotional mood.
So this was largely about Raganuga Bhakti, but we have to be also careful about what is our ISKCON's point of view on this practice. So Srila Prabhupada writes in his chapter 16 about Siddha Pranali and the risk of deviation. What is Siddha Pranali? Let me just tell you briefly and then we'll take a look at it. So at one point of time, I don't know if they are still today, but at, let's say a few decades before, or maybe around a century before, there were spiritual masters at the time of initiation would tell you about your Siddha Roop. So tum tota ho, tum kaua ho, tum ye ho, tum wo ho. Like that, your eternal Sarupa was disclosed. You know, those of you who read Nectar Devotion or commentaries of Acharyas, you know, have been reading like this, they become very much disturbed. What is my Siddha Roop? Who am I in the spiritual world? So our journey began with who am I in Krishna consciousness. When you were told you're not the body but soul, even after practicing for 10, 20 years, still the question remains, who am I? And now in the spiritual world. You know, so there are personalities who used to tell you who are you in the spiritual world like that. So, but in our Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Parampara, we don't do so. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had stopped this practice at his time. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur also stopped it. He didn't do that, revealing the Siddha Roop like that. For example, one devotee had approached His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj and asked, Maharaj, what is your Siddha Roop? Now, somebody so advanced must definitely know their Siddha Roop. Yes or no? Should be revealed. Maharaj said, my Siddha Roop is Dasanudas. I am the servant of all servants. You know, and the devotee who asked this, he was so disturbed. Maharaj, no, tell me Siddha Roop, your Siddha Roop. So Maharaj said, no, this is what Srila Prabhupada told us. For everyone, all of our Siddha Roop is to become the servant of the servant. That is what our Siddha Roop is. Anyways, so there are certain deviations which had occurred and certain instances have also occurred in ISKCON, because of which this discussion on the subject matter was kind of banned, that we don't talk about it. Our approach is we continue to serve. Why our approach is we continue to serve? Because this is something that we cannot grab by our endeavors. It only comes by the mercy of Krishna, mercy of Guru. So if we serve sincerely, then whenever Krishna is ready to award us, Krishna would award. Why forcefully, unnecessarily push our way to find out who we are? Even if you know who you are, how does it matter? You still have to serve. So I have not personally seen, but I heard a case where, in India those days, there was some cases, there was this one police commissioner or somebody who was having an extramarital affair. When he was caught up, so to protect his reputation, he started dressing himself as Krishna and his girlfriend as Gopi. So he said, I am Krishna, this is my Gopi, and this is our transcendental eternal relationship. In fact, that fellow, this is from Uttar Pradesh, he even came to office dressed as Krishna, saying that this is what I am, this is my Siddha Roop, like that. So, lot of unnecessary things happen. See, we cannot have access to transcendental plane. If I put it straight, as His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj often says, one of my favorite speakers, we cannot have access to any of these things if we have any desire for sex, period. There is no question of discussing beyond it. Unless a person gets free from sexual desire, we cannot have access to any of these levels. Okay, so let's take a look at certain deviations which Prabhupada mentions. ISKCON's view of Siddha Pranali. Please read.
Deviations. They imagine that they have become associates of the Lord simply by thinking of themselves like that.
So the emphasis is not on the practice, emphasis is on, okay, you are this, you are that, you read something and you become like that. Next.
Proposal that the word Rajaloka refers only to the residents of Vrindavana in Krishna Lila, such as Srila Rupa Manjari, and not to the residents of Vrindavana in the Gaur Lila, such as Srila Rupa Goswami.
So which means Srila Rupa Goswami is Sri Rupa Manjari. So which means if I am inspired by that, so external and internally we should act as Rupa Manjari. Because Rupa Goswami, that is not part of the Lord's eternal associate. Like that, they have their limited understanding on it. Continue. They don't believe in sadhana and siddha roop. Next.
Wrongly interpret eva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena shastradi to mean that one should imitate the activities of the gopis both as one external sadhana and as one internal meditation.
So they don't see that sadhana and siddha to be part of the external and internal meditation. What other deviations?
Their external behavior is not at all according to the regulative principles.
They don't even follow this regulative principles, not the 64. They don't even follow 4 regulative principles. Prabhupada on Raganuga Bhakti. One devotee can read as a devotee, other can speak as Srila Prabhupada. Please go ahead.
I read somewhere in your writing that in order to understand the confidential affairs of Radha and Krishna, one must serve the gopis who are servants of the gopis. And I assumed that you were a servant of the gopis. Is that correct? Or how do I serve the servants of the gopis?
Now, somebody would ask a question like this to Prabhupada directly about the spiritual, about these associates of Krishna. Be ready for some fantastic answer. Okay? All right. Let's see what Prabhupada gives an answer.
Can I read, Prabhuji?
If you're not supposed to, then I can ask somebody else.
No, I don't.
So you're supposed to read. Why are you asking? Go ahead.
Gopis, they are not conditioned souls. They liberated spirits. First of all, you have come out from this first of all, you have to come out from this conditioned life. Then the question of serving gopis will come. Don't be at the present moment very eager to serve gopis. Just try to get out of your conditional life. Then time will come and you'll be able to serve gopis. In this conditional stage, you cannot serve anything.
Continue.
But Krishna gives us opportunities to accept service in this Akshay Marga. Just like we keep the deity of Krishna, offer prasada under regulation, under principle. So we have to advance in this way, chanting, hearing, and worshipping in the temple, arati, offering prasada. In this way, as we advance, automatically Krishna will reveal to you, and you will understand your position, how you have to. Gopis means for always constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. So that eternal relationship will be revealed. So we have to wait for that. Immediately, we cannot imitate serving gopis. That's a good idea that you shall serve gopis, but it will take time, not immediately. Immediately, we have to follow the rules and regulations and routine work.
If I put into a one line, Prabhupada saying, you fool, first of all, you cannot control your senses and you're trying to serve gopis. And then Prabhupada kind of pamper him. Oh, very nice. That is a good aspiration to serve gopis. Continue serving the deities first. Maybe in future, sometime in this life, in future life, you'll get the revelation. That's a one-line answer for what Prabhupada said here. Prabhupada and Raganuga Bhakti. Another conversation. Please read.
It's the teachings of Lord Chaitanya says, all inhabitants of Brajabhumi, Vrindavana are very dear to Krishna. A devotee in attachment selects one of the inhabitants and follows in his footsteps in order to be successful.
Devotee, devoted to the Vrindavan, inhabitants, you don't directly think of yourself that I shall see Krishna as my son.
Oh,
That is Mayavada.
yes.
You have to follow the footsteps of Yashodama.
Yes, you have told me that before.
Then it will be success.
So what's the point here? One thing is we are like inspired by, let's say, our role model is Yashoda Mai. We are attracted to the mood of bhakti that she has for Krishna. Now, what it means is we should follow. It does not mean that we can replace Yashoda. It is not that in the spiritual world we can become Yashoda. Now, if somebody has a thought that we can become Yashoda, that becomes Mayavad, which means we merge in Yashoda. And that is considered to be offensive. We can become an assistant to Mother Yashoda, or we can have a service similar to Mother Yashoda taking care of Krishna, but you cannot replace Yashoda. You will have Yashoda. Yashoda is an eternal position. It cannot be taken away. That is the point Prabhupada is saying. So yes, you are attracted to one of the residents of Vrindavan, fantastic, but you take a role of assisting them or having an opportunity to serve Krishna like them, but you cannot replace that personality. Let's go back to the book. Let's read one paragraph, what's Siddha Pranali, what we saw in the presentation, and I'll give you the summary of remaining paragraphs, and we'll take a few more slides before we conclude for today. Is that okay if I just take another 5-10 minutes more to conclude this discussion? I don't want to leave it in between. So those of you who are awake can give me a thumbs up. Those of you who are already in meditation, that's all right. I'll take it by default. You're giving me thumbs up. Okay? Okay, all right. So page number 127 on my book. In this connection, we should be careful about the so-called Siddha Pranali. Somebody please read out who have not read or who else would still like to read it. In this connection, continue going down. Yes, Nitai Pranpu, if you found it, go ahead. Yeah, that's there up on the screen. Please read.
In this connection, we should be careful about the so-called Siddha Pranali. The Siddha Pranali process is followed by a class of men who are not very authorized and who have manufactured their own way of devotional service. They imagine that they have become associates of the Lord simply by thinking of themselves like that. This external behavior is not at all according to the regulative principles. The so-called Siddha Pranali process is followed by the Prakrita Sahajya, a pseudo sect of so-called Vaishnavas. In the opinion of Rupa Goswami, such activities are simply disturbances to the standard way of devotional service.
So what is the right way? Next paragraph.
Should I continue, Rupa?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sri Rupa Goswami says that learned acharyas recommend that we follow the regulative principles even after the development of spontaneous love for Krishna. According to the regulative principles, there are 9 departmental activities as described above, and one should specifically engage himself in the type of devotional service for which he has a natural aptitude. For example, one person may have a particular interest in hearing, another may have particular interest in chanting, and another may have particular interest in serving in the temple. So these or any of the other 6 different types of devotional service, remembering, serving, praying, engaging in some particular service, being in a friendly relationship, or offering everything in one's position, should be executed in full earnestness. In this way, everyone should act according to his particular taste.
Full earnestness means with full eagerness. Now coming to the last part of the discussion about conjugal love, Raganuga Bhakti also have 2 parts. Kama Anuga Raganuga Bhakti and Sambandha Anuga Raganuga Bhakti. There was Kama Rupa, here it is Kama Anuga. So if you see in the next pages where it is under conjugal love, So Prabhupada, under that conjugal love, in the next paragraph, talks about who can develop this affection or this desire for conjugal love. Mother Rupali, if you have found it, please read the paragraph. This development of conjugal love can be possible. Yeah, the next paragraph, the second paragraph under this heading.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu. This development of conjugal love can only be possible only with those who are already engaged in following the regulative principles of devotional service, specifically in the worship of Radha and Krishna in the temple. Such devotees gradually develop a spontaneous love for the deity, and by hearing of the Lord's exchange of loving affairs with the gopis, they gradually become attracted to these pastimes. After this spontaneous attraction becomes highly developed, the devotee is placed in either of the above mentioned categories.
So deity worship is so important. Those who engage in direct service of Shri Radha Krishna develop this mood, the potential. And there are two moods. One is directly associating with Krishna, and second mood is of assisting the gopi who directly associates with Krishna. So this is the thing. Now, second concept which is discussed here is somebody is unmuted. Okay. The second point which is discussed is, now I'm in a male body. So this thoughts used to happen before. When you talk about, if in case jokingly you talk about, so Prabhu, what do you want to be there? What's your role play in the spiritual world? So often Prabhus will say, I'm Gopa, I'm this and that. And by default, assumption is the ladies will say, I'm Gopi and all that. But this is totally bodily consciousness. Because our relationship with Krishna is on the platform of a soul, not on the platform of body. So when it said Kamanuga, the conjugal affairs, that does not mean it is only female can develop that affection for Lord. And the example is given of the sages in Dandakaranya forest. When they saw Lord Ram, they became attracted to Lord Ram. And those sages in Dandakaranya forest appeared as the daughters of the gopis who get the chance to associate with Krishna. So you have to understand, we are not the body. Beyond the body, we are Atma. On the platform of soul, what is our natural attraction we develop towards Krishna? According to that, reciprocation happens. That's the point which is mentioned. So this opportunity is both for male and female. Once again, it is not according to your bodily consciousness, but according to who we are as a spirit soul. And next point, and the last point, is parenthood of friendship. We have already discussed that. You cannot become Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, but you can become somebody as a stepmother, stepfather, or things like that. Please read the very last, second last paragraph onwards of this chapter. In the Skanda Purana, there is a story. You have to go to the end of the book, end of the chapter, and from there, second last paragraph. Any devotee would like to read who had been pretty silent all through?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, who is speaking?
And this is my question.
Yes, please
Yes.
go ahead, mother.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
In the Skanda Purana, there is a story of an old man residing in Hastinapura, capital of the kingdom of the Pandus, who desired Krishna as his beloved son. This old man was instructed by Narada to follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj, and thus he achieved success.
Go ahead. Next paragraph also.
There is a statement in the Narayana Vyuha Stava prayers that persons who are always engaged in thinking of the Lord as their husband, friend, father, or well-wisher are always worshipable by everyone. This spontaneous love for Krishna can be developed only by the special mercy of Krishna or the pure devotee. This process of devotional service is sometimes called Pushti Marga.
So there is another name which is given. Raganuga Bhakti is also called as Pushti Marg, and Pushti Marg is generally known as Vallabhacharya Samprada. Go ahead.
Pushti Marga means nourishing, and Marga means path. Such development of sentiments nourishes devotional service to the highest standard. Thus, it is called the path of nourishment or Pushti Marga. The Vallabha Sampradaya, which belongs to Vishnu Swami sect of Vaishnava religion, worships Krishna in this Pushti Marga. Generally, devotees in Gujarat worship Bala Krishna under this heading of Pushti Marga.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Let's go back to the slide deck and let's take a look at it. Comments from Bhanu Maharaj on Raganuga Bhakti. I saw the hands from Mother Maidhini, and few of the devotees. Now we can pair up among them. We have few slides to read. Who else want to read? Okay, Mother Maidani, go ahead, you read.
Bhanuswami on Raganuga Bhakti, Janmashtami Dasa. Someone who successfully executes Raganuga and Bhava eventually enters into Ragatmika Bhakti, correct? Maybe not as Yashoda, but as an elderly Gopi, Manjari, cover boyfriend, etc., correct? Bhanuswami. Yes, we do not become someone else, but assume the identity of a follower of one of the Nitya Siddha associates.
Yes, we don't take their position, but we become their associates. So now we come to the conclusion of what we have discussed today. Please read out, Mother.
Presented an overview of Raganuga Bhakti.
We discussed about Ragatmika and Raganuga Bhakti and
Describe the appropriate attitude for ISKCON devotees towards Siddha Pranali.
Siddha Pranali. We don't practice this. We continue engaging in devotional service sincerely, and whenever Krishna is pleased, Guru is pleased, these all things will be revealed to us in due course of time. We don't make an additional endeavors to go and ask, who am I, what am I in spiritual world. We don't do that. Next.
Describe the appropriate
we
attitude for ISKCON membership towards the practice of
we didn't discuss that. This was a case study. As our time got over, if need to be, I'll discuss that. In terms of how should we react, what should be our attitude towards the practice of Raganuga Bhakti within our forum. Maybe I'll make a comment or two about it. So if in case you find, let's assume hypothetically, you find a devotee in your community who is in particularly very intense in devotional practice, and along with that you find him that he reads a lot of books about particular Vrindavan pastimes, and he is reading about certain Vrindavan glories and reading commentaries of different acharyas, etc., and you find it little, he might not be doing the regular. Just 1 second, somebody is on the door. Hey, Haribol, can somebody open the door? Who is knocking right now? दरवाजा खोलो, कोई है दरवाजे पे. Hare Krishna. So we find somebody in this situation, how should we behave is what is point of discussion. As long as this person is not promoting something or not talking to a younger generation about such subject matter, there's nothing that we have to do on it. As long as the devotee is focusing on his devotional practice and is following all the rules and regulations that Srila Prabhupada have given, there's nothing that we have to become fanatic about. As a devotee grows, they might want to read certain literatures. Certain literatures may not be written by Prabhupada but by previous acharyas, so we don't have to raise a red flag for it. Oh, they're not reading Prabhupada books and all that. So point is, as long as somebody is strictly following and in their own personal capacity bhakti, we don't have to become too much fanatic about it. However, there has to be a caution drawn. We have seen cases where people have prematurely tried to read the esoteric writings of Srila Rupa Goswami about the relationship of Shri Radha, Krishna and gopis, and they got distracted. So when certain things happen like this and you see some new devotees, younger generation doing that, that should be brought to the notice of seniors. Couple of cases seen that some devotees become really very, very inspired. Every day they'll get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and externally they look so steadfast. In the night, even if they sleep at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, still they get up at 2 o'clock. They look so pakka and all that. But it's a gradual process. And when things happen too abruptly and too sooner, it is seen people at times lose their mental balance. They become a little bit psychologically disturbed, or their behavior becomes a little absurd in a public forum. Sometimes, I don't know. How many of you had that experience? You read about Rupa Goswami or Raghunath Goswami and you felt that spurti, inspiration. I should also follow in the footsteps. I should also be like this. What a fantastic devotional life. And we might follow that, let's say, like Raghunath Goswami, buttermilk, a glass of buttermilk in 2 days or 3 days. Sometimes, there was one brahmachari who really got into that mood of doing some severe austerity. Unfortunately, ended up getting hospitalized. Now he's not even in the ashram and all that. So what we have to see, we have to see. We have to gradually grow into it. And at least there should not be any compromise of Prabhupada's practice. See, one thing, I'll conclude with the subject matter. Your growth or your attraction to Krishna cannot be at the cost of Vaishnava culture and etiquette. If your practice is producing pride in you, I am better than others, then that is not an outcome of bhakti, it is an outcome of your karma or modes of material nature. There is some hidden agenda. You want puja la pratishtha in the society, therefore you're trying to do this additional activities of bhakti. But somebody who has naturally come on Raganuga, who's on the Raganuga stage, does not have any anarthas. There is no kama, there is no krodha like that. Who's on that stage, he would be but very humble. So there are different characteristics altogether of the personality. With that, we pause here for today. We had a discussion about how bhakti is independent of jnana and karma. And then we had a discussion about Raganuga Bhakti, which is also part of sadhana bhakti. This Raganuga Bhakti comes beyond anartha nivritti. And Raganuga Bhakti is impelled by a spontaneous attraction for Krishna, which is not governed by rules and regulations or instructions, but you naturally are attracted to serving Krishna or to be with Krishna and devotees. And how does this practice happen? Raganuga Bhakti grows by falling into the footsteps of Ragatmika Bhaktas. Ragatmika Bhaktas are celebrated, eternal, pure devotees of the Lord who are always residing in spiritual world. And being inspired by such role models, we also try to follow in their footsteps. And all of them have Siddha Roop and Sadhaka Roop. So externally we follow their Sadhaka Roop, internally we meditate on Siddha Roop. I like that we focus our devotional activity more and make it more condensed. Hare Krishna. तो आज का सत्र हम यहीं समाप्त करते हैं. Oh, sorry, I meant to say we close our today's discussion here. If any comments or any questions we have, we can take that. You are still upset with Kamsa, Mother Maithini? Why his name came in Nectar Devotion? Oh, yeah, that question, you have another question now. Yes. Is your question about the follow-up question or different question?
No, it's different question.
Okay. So you're forgiven Kamsa, right? Yes.
I'm not forgiving Kamsa. So, Prabhuji, my question is, this particular chapter started that it is lust if we engage in sense gratification, and it is love if we engage in the service of the Supreme Lord, right? So my question is, sometimes when we dress the deities or when we hear, about the fruit class, we also, at least I tend to see myself enjoying that particular chapter, the deities, right?
Totally acceptable. Totally acceptable part of bhakti. No worries about it. If we don't get any reciprocation and relish, we cannot do service. So that reciprocation, that joy that we get while serving is not lust, is but essential part of our service. Okay? Nothing to worry about it. If that would be the case, then why in ISKCON we serve delicious prasadam? We can just cook anything randomly. And when prasadam comes on the counter, oh, our devotees, there should not be any lust in them. They are pure devotees. Then let's mix dal, roti, sabji, chapati, gulab jamun and the juice of gulab jamun. Put it everything in a single container and mix it, grind it, make a khichdi out of it. And then on top of it, whatever the ras of gulab jamun was there, pour it. And now serve as khatta meetha khichdi. How many feel like vomiting sensation now? So now whoever can eat that prasadam is definitely a pure devotee of the Lord. No. Enjoy your devotional life. That's all right. Harinam
Probably one
Prabhu.
more question in the same aspect.
Okay.
We don't relish, so the pastimes of Krishna, if we are indeed relishing the pastimes of Krishna, we should relish the class given by anybody, right? But we have our own preferences. We want to hear from certain devotees. So in that case, is it really love for the pastimes, or is it something else?
Unity in diversity. We are all individual living entities. Individual living entities. We are unique personalities with our own likings and dislikings. So let's not try to make it. We would always have some likings for one particular speaker. In fact, we may have more likings for particular pastimes of the Lord. It always happens. That's all right. In conditioned life, you don't know what all goes on. As long as you're progressive, be happy about it. We'll understand all this thing only when we are beyond our conditioned life. There are so many parameter comes. So if you are a part of a temple, like for example, brahmacharis, they are residents of the temple, they have to compulsory attend the class regardless of who gives it. And in fact, this is not our choice. This is the culture created by Srila Prabhupada. Even for congregation, it is very unfortunate, sorry to say that publicly, it's very unfortunate in this online time. People say, oh, why to go to Sunday temple because so-and-so Prabhu is giving class. I would hear online from so-and-so devotee who's speaking somewhere else. You're breaking the whole community spirit. We come together, we serve together. Of course, if somebody, for example, yes, you have the right to say, okay, I'm not going to go to temple. Then you should not go to temple for any other activity also. You cannot pick and choose. If you are a part of a community, be part of the community and serve the community. See, when you come together and when you hear together, when you share together, that's where the Bhakti Shakti blossoms. But there now you begin to pick and choose. Oh, no, my counselor will have a meeting this time, this excuse, that excuse. No, I will hear a lecture at mayapurtv.com, or I'll hear who is giving class in Vrindavan. No, Prabhupada never. Prabhupada said, Prabhupada wanted. See, point is, all of us who are practicing, all of us have some realizations. And when we hear from different devotees, their realizations, inspires us in our bhakti. It is so important to hear from different devotees. It is so important. Of course, I am saying as a part of morning Bhagavatam class. But when it comes to your main nourishment, that definitely has to be from one or two devotees. Like Prabhupada hearing should be there, Guru Maharaj hearing, Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, that should be there because that is your main source of inspiration. But as a part of community, of course, you're a congregation member, so you don't have to be in the temple every day. But if you assumingly go to Sunday every Sunday, if you go to temple on every Sunday, now you decide not to go on this Sunday particularly, why? Because a younger devotee than I is giving a Bhagavatam class. Why should I go? Not a good attitude. You got the point, right? If you have been going all Sundays, but this Sunday you decide to skip because a younger devotee than I is giving a Bhagavatam class, then that's not a good attitude. We should all come together, we should hear, glorify. Of course, somebody is not in a good standing or something, that is okay. But we should come forward. We should do that. We should. Yes, Harinam Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I have this query regarding the Shishupal attaining liberation by his, even though he was envy.
Correct.
So, but generally it is said like due to envy only we have the material bondage. We felt.
Correct.
We have fallen. So how to reconcile it?
He was dawn in envy. He was dawn means he was so great in that envy that 24/7 he thought of Krishna. And our level of envy is such we have forgotten about Krishna. Yes or no? So greatness of Shishupal's envy was such that he could never forget Krishna. And problem with our envy is we have forgotten about Krishna. So glory lies in somehow remembering Krishna. Because he remembered Krishna first, and second, he was killed by Krishna. Whoever got killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, whoever got killed means, of course, Krishna did not kill anyone, but whoever died seeing Krishna, they all attained liberation. In fact, everyone went back. And this is how it is said, like that. So Shishupal, this was a question asked by Yudhishthira Maharaj in the 7th canto to Narad Muni. How did Shishupal got liberation? Narad Muni said so. Because whoever gets killed by Krishna, he died seeing Krishna. So point is, whatever Krishna does is absolute, is all good. So in case of Shishupal, therefore Shishupal example is quoted by Narada Muni that, amongst the pure devotees of the Lord, Shishupal and Kamsa's example was quoted because they were also absorbed 24/7 remembering Krishna. So that's the reason. So the more we remember Krishna, the more we get purified. Of course, they could not get purified of their envy. Therefore, they were punished by Krishna. And when they got punished, they got purified. Okay?
Okay. So the destination of Shishupal is not the Vaikuntha.
No, we read already, no? We already clarified. In the chapter we read again and again, Prabhupada says, no, sunshine is an example. The example of entering the kingdom and entering into the private chambers of the king. Similarly, entering into Brahman, but entering into Goloka Vrindavan is two different things. Okay?
And Shishupal is the Jaya Vijaya, they came as the three.
Yeah, now that's an extended pastime. Jaya Vijaya story. We are just discussing right now about Shishupal. But now that's an extended pastime. They are Jaya Vijay, that was their third lifetime, going back to Godhead. That is a background story, no doubt about it. But in context of Shishupal, what happened with him has been described. Let's say Shishupal, in position of Shishupal, went to Brahman. But ultimately, Shishupal was none other than Jaya Vijay, which means from Brahman, he must have elevated back to Vaikuntha, because that was his original position. He was put under that forgetfulness for the time being. Okay? Because that was a curse. What we know is what has happened, but we don't know what happened after that. Just like people raise so many questions at times. Oh, Yudhishthira Maharaj had to go to hell. When the whole Mahabharata ended, how can Yudhishthira Maharaj go to hell if Yudhishthira Maharaj had to go to hell? And Duryodhana went to Swarga. Yudhishthira saw Duryodhana sitting in Swarga, and Yudhishthira said, Swarga is hell for me if Duryodhana is there. They said, no problem, I'll take you to hell. He came to hell. But he came to hell for a very short span of time, and when he went to hell, people got purified seeing the darshan of Yudhishthira Maharaj. But what happened after that? They all went back. Let's say Harinam Prabhu leaves from Bombay, and Mother Medhavani gets a message, or she sees on GPS, Harinam Prabhu have reached Lonavala. And she sends that as a message. That doesn't mean Harinam Prabhu have only reached Lonavala. After 2 hours, he reached Pune. But that message was not given to us. Getting it, na? So that's the point. Okay? Yes, Jai Prabhu.
Prabhu, this is related to one slide that you had quoted earlier, which I think was a quotation from Guriraj Maharaj. So there it was mentioned, mention related to greed for Krishna. So there it was mentioned that we should not think that we are not eligible for getting anything.
Yes.
We should think the opposite, that whatever I am, I will.
Point is about greed. We should be greedy. We should not become hopeless in path of bhakti. I'm so useless, I'm good for nothing. There is no hope for me. Rather than that, whatever it is, I'm hopeless, agreed upon it. I find difficult to follow 4x, agreed upon it. I do this, whatever it is. But I am not going to leave the spiritual path. That is called as lalyam. That was the point there. Okay?
But Prabhu, then there has to be a higher, obviously in my state, our state, that is not applicable.
Yeah, it is only applicable when you are.
If I start thinking that way, then I might ignore, I might take things for granted.
So you will take for granted, you will do anything and everything, that is always possible. But for you to practice Krishna consciousness, you have to always stay in association of senior Vaishnavas. All this problem arises when we are away from the association of devotees. If you're in association of devotees, none of these will arise. In association of devotees, you will feel greatly humbled. Simultaneously, you will feel inspired to practice bhakti, not other way around. Okay? So these all thoughts may come when I am practicing alone and there's nobody to guide me. Oh, I read the scripture and realized I'm so fallen. Oh no, I'm so useless. I cannot do anything. And you have nothing, nobody to ask, what should I am supposed to do? You're supposed to keep your mouth shut and chant Hare Krishna and keep walking. Don't cry too much about it, your situation. You know? I remember there was a devotee back in America. Every time he'll come and meet me, Prabhu, what do I tell you? And I would tell him, Prabhu, tell me some new story. Every time you come and tell me I'm so fallen, that is already recorded. Everyone in the creation knows you are so fallen. Why you have to keep telling me the same thing again and again? Can't you give me some new news? You know, so that's already known about all of us. You know? So just like somebody said to Prabhupada, I'm so fallen. Prabhupada said, fallen from where? There has to be some position. You should be of that certain stature to say that, you know, I have fallen down or something like that. Just like when His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, disciple, he went to Maharaj, he said, Maharaj, I had a really tough time in the last 1 month and I'm sorry I could not keep up the principles. I have become fallen. Maharaj asked, from where? From where did you fall? And that person became totally relaxed. He became totally relaxed. He realized, oh, I've been so mental thinking that I have grown up somewhere and I've fallen from somewhere. And Maharaj said, you have not gone anywhere. Nowhere. You're only fallen right now. You practice for some time, then you will have some stature. Okay? So it's 3 o'clock. I'll pause here. We have taken plenty of questions of everyone. Okay, Madam Medhavani, she has a conclusion to make. Yes.
Yeah, I was just, drawing from Marina to this question. When you actually took the Krishna book last year, you said how Krishna just slapped Kamsa behind his ear and he fell down dead. While he enjoyed Veerya with Jambavan, right? Because he's a pure devotee to the Lord, he enjoyed fighting with Jambavan. So, like how Harinam Prabhu said, they are actually they are pure devotees to the Lord. So why didn't actually Krishna did not enjoy fighting with Kamsa or Shishupal or for that matter even he did enjoy with Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, because it said that there's a huge
Your question is noted. Your question is duly noted. I'll send a WhatsApp to Krishna. When he replies, I'll pass it on to you. Why didn't you?
WhatsApp message. Krishna replies.
If Krishna replies, if he replies, if he doesn't reply, you will not get any answer from him. So why Krishna did not enjoy, so that only Krishna can tell why Krishna did not.
You gave a logic that Krishna enjoyed Veerya with Jambavan. That is Kamsa, he just slapped on his ear and he fell down dead. But now I'm just drawing a parallel from Harinam Prabhu's question that they were also pure devotees, Jay and Vijaya. And in another lifetime when Jay and Vijaya came with Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they had
Fine. So what's the point? What's the question?
My question is, why Veerya with Kamsa?
अरे करा ना, उसको चाटा मारा ना. That is part of Veerya Rasa only na. Krishna did not embrace Kamsa and liberated him. Giving a slap is part of Veerya Rasa only na. Or you are.
When you explained, you didn't say that. You said he enjoyed Veerya.
Because you did not ask a question like that. See, his Veerya Rasa was already taken care because Kamsa had sent people ahead of him. Krishna had already already fights. It is not that Krishna just came from Vrindavan. Yeah, there were the elephants, everything. They was already there. So the Krishna's entertainment had already was overdue. And Kamsa's stay in this world was also overdue. So then Krishna said, enough is enough, time for closing the picture. So just like we have a time to close our session, so now we close it. So like in a single slap, he closed the case of Kamsa. All right? This is my humble understanding on this. Hare Krishna. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki.